Ready? Mic's on?
Mic's on.
All right. The time is now 6:33. The date is Wednesday, April 8th, 2026. Commissioner Payne is absent tonight. We'll take a virtual roll call. Jim Franklin's here. Megan Hickey.
Here.
Kalina Vendetti.
Here.
Dot McFarland.
Here.
Marilyn Cossadoy.
Here.
All right, note, the meeting is now open. Please note that we are doing a hybrid meeting with in-person and virtual attendance. If a member of the virtual public would like to make comments during a public hearing, please use the raise the hand function on Zoom, and you'll be assigned a speaking time. If you're listening in via telephone dial-in, press *9 to raise your hand, and then press *6 to unmute yourself. This meeting is being recorded by the local scene, and a record of this meeting will be posted on the local scene's website as soon as they are able. Anyone intending to make an audio or video recording of this meeting should notify the chair at this time. Hearing none, we'll move on. Announcement. The Kingston Conservation Commission is seeking a new member. Commissioners are responsible for protecting the town's natural resources, including through enforcement of state and local wetland protection laws. Those interested should reach out to Conservation Department by calling 781-585-0537 or emailing Matt Peneller at mpenella@kingstonma.gov. Action items. Looks like I will now continue a public meeting to discuss the request for a determination of applicability, an RDA, for 28 Rabbith Road, submitted by Steinbeck and Taylor on behalf of property owner Frank DeRico for proposed removal of hazard trees and treatment of invasive plants. Matt, do you have any comments?
Yeah, we received correspondence from Ann Sobolewski on behalf of the applicant. There was a wetlands report that was submitted about the filing, but we're still waiting on they were going to prepare a more detailed certified arborist's letter. And apparently the arborist who did the initial assessment has since retired, so they needed a little more time for that. Yeah, and I guess when we get the rest of the information, it will go on the agenda. But I believe at the last time this was discussed by the commission was looking to do a site visit with the arborist. So I'm not sure if we'll be able to do that before the next hearing. I will try to coordinate that with their representative. If not, it'll just be discussed the next time this is open.
May I ask a question? This is under enforcement, it's not act, or is it, did it start under enforcement?
I mean, start is a funny
Right. So
term. It was enforcement a long time ago, and we did let them know, like, okay, you're all set, the enforcement issue is put to bed. And then when it came back for an RDA, we realized that there was a big portion of area that had been being mowed again. So there hasn't been enforcement action taken. We've sort of been letting this work itself out through the RDA process so far.
Okay, because there was things that were supposed to be done that weren't done, that were still waiting to be done. This last time they were, I mean, we can't really get into it very much, I guess, either, but can I ask that it not be continued after next time? Like, could I make a request that we actually make motion on this next time? Because it's been continued and continued and continued and continued, like.
Yeah, and I mean, it's always up to the commission if somebody requests to continue. I mean, you don't have to. It's just, in
Okay,
most
so then
cases.
I don't know if I need to make a motion that this will be the last time I would like to continue this?
I can definitely let them know that
Okay.
the commission would like to discuss this on, I don't know, what was the date we put in for April 22nd? It was just the 2-week.
Right.
So I can definitely put in there that at minimum, the commission wants to discuss this on the
Right.
22nd.
Or it will be discussed on the 22nd. Because there are a few outstanding things that aren't getting addressed in the meantime that are still not getting addressed.
All right, any other comments? All right, I just have a comment, pushing it to the next meeting, to set up everything in light of Megan's comments. I think that's think that's overly optimistic. I think that if we're going to kind of draw our line, that we should be giving them to the first meeting in May, which I think is the 13th. What's everybody think about that?
And then call it.
Or give them a month and then, like, we will be discussing it on the 13th?
Yeah.
I'll give them a month, but that's fine.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Within that space, are we still expecting to manage a sidewalk?
Yeah, I
Expect
think
in
30
that
days
time,
gives us enough time that if it doesn't happen, if they can't pull the arborists together in that time frame, then I think I know which way I'd be leaning on RDA, so.
Right, well, it's
But
not,
part of the feedback to them will be that we're still looking to schedule a.
Absolutely,
Right.
yeah, no, nothing, as far as I'm concerned, nothing would change on
right,
how we were going to go. I'm just saying, let's kick it out another 2 weeks, and let's let them know that one way or another we'll be discussing it during that. And if we decide that they haven't moved forward enough, then we can always kick it, and they can refile.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, do we have a motion perhaps?
So you need a motion to continue it to, no, you asked for the first meeting in May.
I think it's May 13th, Matt?
May 13th is the first meeting in May.
May 13th.
May 13th.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to continue to May 13th, and to ask Matt to communicate that one way or another we're discussing this at that meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, we have a second. We'll take all in favor, say aye vote.
Aye.
Aye.
I am an aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 5-0. All right. All right, I will now open a discussion on updates to the Conservation Department's information receipt deadline. Matt?
I guess I know we put this on the agenda as a separate item, but my recommendation is going to be that we're already going to be discussing updates of KWPR in a hearing tonight and working on that whole process as I was going through KWPR, doing a red line, our information receipt policy is in KWPR. So there's really no point in updating that now. We would have to reissue KWPR just with that one minor change. We might as well just wait until the rest of it is done. It's similar to, I'll get into it later. But yeah, I think we just wrap it in with the KWPR update.
Sounds good. Enforcement, 44 Rabbith Road. Matt, please provide us your update.
I have not been on site, but I did speak with the property owner, asked for some photo documentation. I did get a photo of the dumpster area. I did get confirmation from the property owner that they did everything that was supposed to be done by that point as far as the exterior of the property. If the commission specifically wants me to go out and look at it, I'm more than happy to do that. Otherwise, they are on notice that now, if there is evidence of any violation of that standard, that there were going to be fines issued based on the way the EO was written. So as far as I'm concerned, it's in compliance now, but I haven't gone out specifically to check it with my own eyes. I'm more than happy to go do that if the commission wants me to do that.
Commissioners?
I would like that.
Sounds like Megan would like it.
Yes.
Straw poll, I think I'd prefer you putting
Eyes
your
on it.
eyes on it so that there's no wiggle room.
Right.
Either it's in compliance or it's not in compliance, and we can draw that line in the sand, and if they're on the wrong side of it, then at least we'll know that they weren't when we just kind of moved forward with the issue.
Okay.
Do we want to take a vote on that?
Sure.
We take a motion to,
So the motion would be to have Matt go out and do the site reconnaissance, so to speak?
yes.
Okay, I'll make that motion.
All right, we have a motion from Marilyn, second by Megan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries 5-0. Matt, 19 Blair Drive, enforcement action. Could you bring us up to date?
Yep. Let me see. I can pull up anything on the screen if the commission wants, but you're all here in person and probably saw everything. So on March 26th, we received word that the lot at 19 Blair Drive had been clear cut and that machines were there working on site, spreading dirt all the way to the edge of the coast. And they had said it was at 14 Blair Drive, not 19, but I was familiar with 19 Blair Drive already from a few years ago, and so Georgiana and I went immediately out to check the site, and it was accurate. We found a contractor there. The trees on the property had been clear cut, the stumps had been ripped out, all of the vegetation on the site, the strong majority of the vegetation on the site had been ripped up, so all of the soil disturbed, and there had been at least one triaxle load of some sort of fill. Couldn't tell exactly what it was. It wasn't loam. The loam was supposedly coming in the next day. So we actually pulled up right behind a triaxle that was full and stopped them from dumping another load, talked to the contractor, who was familiar with conservation because he's currently doing another project in town. And I stopped work, gave him a stop work order. He had said that he told the property owner that he should file, and the property owner didn't want to, and that he told the property owner, at least you should put in a silt fence. And so he agreed to put the silt fence in. The silt fence was very inadequate. It did not span the entire width of the disturbed area, and I think you can see in that picture that you can see the ocean directly underneath one side of the silt fence. So the silt fence was not installed into the ground in the correct way. So he told me the property owner, which is the same owner of 14 Blair next door, was in Florida and had contracted him to clear the area for, I believe, a vegetable garden and turf. So I said, no further work can happen at the site. You should really talk to the property owner about stabilization. This is not good. The site slopes from Blair Drive down towards the ocean. I said, if we get a big rainstorm and dirt enters the bay, there's going to be fines every day that happens. And he gave me the contact information for the property owner. We got back to the office and called the property owner, left him a detailed voicemail saying you need to take care of this, you need to stabilize the site, fines will be issued, and the commission will discuss this on April 8th. He called on Friday when our office was closed and left just a brief voicemail. We got back to him on Monday morning and spoke with him about the site. He didn't feel like it was an issue, like he didn't feel like there was going to be any input into the bay. He said, oh, we left grass in front of the silt fence, which I sort of said, no, you didn't. You can see a tiny, tiny bit of grass on the right side of the silt fence, but primarily it's everything right up to the coastal bank was ripped out. So I said, you need to stabilize the site. I gave some advice, which I had also given the day before to the contractor about how the site could be properly stabilized. Ultimately, the landowner, agreed. I'll do some hay bales. I said, okay, the hay bales should help. So do some hay bales and get the silt fence situated. I said, that may not be all you need to do. I would do as much as you need to do to make sure nothing gets in the bay. I said, I'm going to be checking the site every time it rains to make sure that nothing gets into the bay, and if it is, I'll be issuing fines. And we went to the site several times after that and didn't see any obvious issues. Even from a distance, you can see when there's serious movement of sediment, and it didn't appear to happen. I think we just didn't get a big enough rain. And then I was out there, I believe it was yesterday, really quickly just to do a drive-by while I was out, and there were hay bales across in front of the silt fence. The silt fence did look like it extended further, was a little more substantial, so there were steps taken, your minimum protective steps now. The site still is not fully stabilized. There's still exposed dirt on the majority of the site, but you at least have, a baseline protective erosion control there now. For background, there were orders of conditions issued on this property to the previous owner for construction of a single-family house. That permit has expired, so there is it expired actually March 10th, so it expired probably 2 weeks before this work, maybe before I was there on site anyway, so There was no permit, the permit was never recorded, there was no pre-work check anyways, so that really nothing about this is valid. The work is obviously jurisdictional, the area is obviously jurisdictional. So pretty clear just from aerial imagery that the area was in a vegetated condition, you know, a natural condition, likely. I've been on the site a few times over the years. I don't think I have photos from any other time I've been on site, and this doesn't show up in Google Street View so that you can see the condition of everything underneath the trees that are there. But regardless, you can tell from photos. We have some really bad photocopied photos from, I believe it was 2019, where you can see some of the vegetative makeup of the coastal bank and some of the understory. And you can see that, in general, the site is in a natural condition. So here you had a vegetated lot in a natural condition on the bay, on the coastal bank, in the velocity zone, for about 40 feet of the property landward of the coastal bank is in the velocity zone. So, we have a question.
We'll open it up to the commission.
So I had a question, Matt. In your observations, were you able to ascertain whether there had been any damage, given all that work, to the top of the coastal bank itself?
No, I've not been down to the coastal bank specifically to look at it, no. I don't have any indication that work went down that far, so I don't expect that there was damage to that. Now, one other, what's that? Okay. So this enforcement today, for what I put on the agenda, was specific to 19 Blair Drive. The owner of 19 Blair Drive owns other property adjacent. They own 14 Blair Drive, which has had some permitting before. There is a garage and pervious driveway that was done during an RDA a couple of years ago at 14 Blair Drive. But as to whether, and I believe same person might own 15 Blair Drive. I can't confirm that. It's a corporation that owns the property, and I don't see anything in the corporation's database that says what that corporation is. But the same sort of anonymous person who emailed initially about the work there was making a claim that the person also owns 15 Blair Drive and has built something on the coastal bank there as well, which Jim actually just pulled up on his fancy aerial imagery that I haven't been able to see on mine. So it is possible that there are other enforcement issues either at 14 or 15 Blair Drive, but for now, I just brought forward 19 specifically for the clearing that just took place. Obviously, whenever you talk about Rocky Nook, you look left and you look right and you see turf all the way to the coastal bank. You know, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that was done before there were wetlands regs. There's some of that where people probably got away with doing that without being caught. But that doesn't mean that the commission would allow this to happen in this situation, and it's a pretty bad idea considering the amount of the property that's in velocity zone. So I just, before there are any more questions, as far as recommendations, I just wrote that the commission would likely want to issue an enforcement order mandating complete site stabilization, and we can talk about what that would mean. The filing of a restoration plan and the filing of a permit for any work on the property that the owner may wish to do. The commission could issue per violation fines if it chooses to do so, though in my opinion they wouldn't be daily fines because there hasn't been a specific, you need to do this by this date or else. If an EO was issued and dates were not met, then daily fines could be issued after that.
Matt, can I ask, I didn't see it, but clearly, you know, you can see that they cut down some mature trees, you know, based on the size of the logs in those images.
Yeah.
And it looks like they did some filling work adjacent to the coastal bank. Was it your opinion that that's the case, and then we would be inside the buffer zones too, significantly inside the buffer zones, even adjacent to the top of coastal bank.
Yeah, so basically, I think the entire lot is within commission jurisdiction, if not the strong majority of it, which is typical of these coastal properties on the Nook. And the clearing went all the way to the coastal bank. Again, I haven't walked down there and specifically put eyes on the coastal bank, but the entire lot was cleared. And in fact, in the photos, you can see there's a tree that looks like it may have been on the lot of 15 or right on the property line or something that was limbed up and cut, that it's just a standing pole now. And that's pretty much the only vegetation that's left around that lot. Yeah. It looks like there still is one tree that was left down. Maybe that's the property line, is where the tree that's remaining that looks like it's been pruned up to have higher branches. But there is another tree, that was limbed up completely. So yeah, every tree essentially on the lot has been cleared. I don't know what they were. Some of them I think were oaks based on what I saw on the ground for lumber, but there were definitely eastern red cedars, which is a native, typical coastal species. For the record, there is previous enforcement action on 14 Blair Drive under the same property owner for, I believe it was around 2010 maybe, for unpermitted modifications to the coastal bank. It was a creation of a bait pool, whatever that is. But from my records, the property owner did everything the commission required of them to do within a month. So between when the enforcement was issued and when the property was dealt with and the enforcement was taken off the table was just about a month's time, which is good. And since then, the property owner did file an RDA for other work on 14 Blair Drive. So I guess I'm saying there has been a situation before where the property owner has shown compliance and understood the need for permitting. In this case, they chose not to, and the contractor as well, very amenable to working with us and stopping work and all of that. There was no issue with any of that, but they did indicate like they knew that, and I explained that sometimes the commission also looks to talk to contractors or issue fines to contractors over these issues. So, yeah.
We'll open it up to the commission for discussion. If I could, I mean, just looking at the images on this one, this is egregious. And we're hearing that there's a history of them being in the purview of enforcement previously. So it's one thing for somebody not to know, and it's another just to go out and do what they're going to do, in my opinion. So when I look at something like this, I feel very strongly that this is an enforcement action, and I don't think we treat this as, this is the first time just because it's the first time on the property. If the owner has been in front of the board, they should have known better at this point. And there's some actions that need to be done here. I would be very open to fines immediately. If they did fill land, then we have, filling of land in a coastal zone, which, correct me if I'm wrong, is a daily fine.
It's a daily violation. You could issue fines for every day that fill has been in place. In my opinion, it's unlikely to be upheld if it's appealed to the magistrate, as opposed to if you say you have until X date to remove any fill brought onto the property and fully stabilize the site so that there's no exposed soil, and file a restoration plan by X date. If any of those aren't met, you're going to issue daily fines until they are, and that's spelled out in the EO, and that's defensible. It's hard for a magistrate to overturn that and say, because what I've heard in the past from magistrates that have overturned the commission's fines has been the town didn't meet its burden of proof that the resident knowingly violated the law, which is not a standard that wetlands law is held to, so they're incorrect in overturning in those situations, but they still do. So it's good for us to know that they do, and that doesn't mean that you have to avoid issuing fines in those situations. You just have to understand that if they're appealed, more than likely they're going to be overturned. And I've always cautioned against taking actions that we expect aren't going to be successful, in the sense that that could give the commission a reputation for taking actions that aren't defensible.
I don't disagree with you. What I will say is that perhaps it's time to push back on some of that from the legal side. If we get a magistrate who misapplies the law, it's a town's bylaw, it's not we're not just making it up as we go along. So we do have a job to do. The town voted in the bylaw. We're the board of volunteers who's responsible for making sure that those bylaws are upheld. So if we need to get legal counsel involved, we should get legal counsel involved. Because if we allow a magistrate to supersede what the bylaw is, then we're essentially letting a judicial member take precedence over the legislature.
Right.
In this case, home rule applies. So just because he got it wrong doesn't mean we have to adopt that as a new normal. Is my strong stance when we get into stuff like that. So,
Can I offer a?
Yeah.
So in situations like this, I think the way that these things could be handled to a similar effect is you can absolutely issue a one-time $300 violation or citation for every violation of KWPR, essentially KWPR that's here. So you have, and that you can look at that different ways. You can say the clearing of trees from jurisdiction is $300. The disturbance of substrate or soil, in jurisdiction without a permit is $300. The importation of fill into jurisdiction is $300. Other commissions in certain situations, and I don't know if this would be the type of one that would lend well to that or not, would say you cut down 10 trees, each tree is $300. I don't know if that would be defensible or not in this situation, but there are ways to get to, I think, the end that you're looking for, which is you're saying, like, typically a lot of people don't care about a $300 fine, and it's better to just do this work and not care what the commission does about it. You do have the enforcement process to get restoration. This is a property that had a valid order of conditions for a time period anyways, where somebody could have cleared most of the lot. I don't know exactly how close to the coastal bank the clearing went, but there was going to be a house put on the property pretty close to Blair Drive. So it is feasible that they could probably do some sort of work on this property and get a permit for it, but you wouldn't want it to happen in the velocity zone. You would want to make sure there was dense established vegetation up against the coastal bank. So I think you'd probably be looking for some more substantial fines for this level of work being done, being that an entire lot was clear cut, a lot of soil was destabilized.
Yeah, multiple issues.
And fill was brought in. And if we hadn't shown up, if somebody hadn't notified us on this, it would have been multiple triaxle loads of fill, and then the next day, however many loads of loam were going to be coming there, and it was going to be spread out. My guess is they were probably going to do some sort of seeding or hydroseed or something. But if you had a big storm at that point, you'd have a lot of loam washing out into the bay. So, there was a lot.
There was potential
going
for
on
even
there.
greater damage.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying that makes sense. I like the idea of multiple fines. One-time fines at this point with some language and some compulsion to bring this site back into compliance. What's the rest of the board think is proper?
Do we know approximately how many trees were removed?
I can get that number, roughly, at least the number of mature trees from aerial imagery.
Talking over a dozen.
I would say roughly a dozen, 10 to 12 mature trees is my guess, based on my memory of the different aerials that I've flipped through. You know, it certainly wasn't a forest. But it was a natural site. Those trees some of those may have been planted 100 years ago or so. I have no idea, but at this point, I would say from a wetlands protection standpoint, that was clearly natural vegetation or a naturalized buffer zone situation. So yeah, I would say roughly 10 trees and a lot of smaller stuff, but yeah.
And that whole lot is our jurisdiction?
Generally, yes. I believe the entire lot is within, yes, because the flood zone goes 40 feet landward of the coastal bank.
Yeah.
So you have another 100 foot off of that, so, yeah.
So it's all in our jurisdiction.
Yeah, jurisdiction goes out probably close to the middle of the street.
My thought, I would be inclined for separate, itemized fines. One for the fill, one for the removal of trees, one for the soil disturbance. I am leaning towards what Matt said, more towards like itemizing 10 trees, 10 fines, another fine. I know it's extreme, but they know what they did. They know that they should have been in front of us. I don't know.
So Megan, are you saying you'd want a fine for each tree that came down? Or one fine for trees removed?
I guess it's how, I don't know how I was gonna read how it's stated in our bylaw. I don't wanna cause issues either, but like, it was egregious. So I think we have the right to be egregious with our response.
I think just on that term, I think we're responding in like kind to the actions that were taken,
Right.
right? From just the communication that we received tonight, you said the parcel that we're looking at, either side is owned by the same owner?
At least
Same
one
people
side
owner?
is. I don't know who owns 15 Blair Drive. That may be hearsay.
Okay. I'll refrain from that, but there's definitely a history, and that they should know better. And having it clear cut without doing anything, when clearly they were advised by their professional that something needed to be done, and they should have known better, and it's clear that the slope is towards the bay, I think we're within all polite rules to issue the appropriate fines. And I'll say that the idea of daily fines is in my head, but I think the immediate approach at this point, give them one set of fines for the actions that were committed, and then
Give them time to.
Then do the
certain
deadlines.
for
Right.
X, Y, and Z. I think that's appropriate, so. Matt, we spoke about, there'll need to be stabilization, there'll need to be filing for the reestablishment of all the appropriate items, and then for actually doing whatever work they wanted to do on site. So it sounds like there's 3 or 4 different action items in there that we should be discussing, but do you feel that just issuing the enforcement actions and calling them to the next meeting to kind of come back with more solid requirements for dates and times for what else needs to be done on that site is appropriate? What's the best path, do you think?
I mean, I think if you want fill removed and you want the site stabilized, you probably want it done as quickly as possible. I questioned whether I should issue an enforcement order immediately to mandate work, some of that work, and chose not to do that. A little bit of complexity in the situation, given that the property owner was not there, was in Florida and going to be in Florida. So we had limited ability to ensure that we could get a document to him. Recommendation was to mail it to the 14 Blair Drive address and then text a picture of an EO to the property owner. And I don't have a work phone. It's absolutely not going to do that. Thought maybe I could work through the town administrator for that. He was on vacation. So I just chose not to do that part of it. I did let the property owner know twice verbally about the meeting tonight. He understood that. Doesn't appear to be here. But I'm not sure about if we want to kind of kick anything to the next meeting or just issue an EO and go from there. We can do it either way. It's just, in the mean, there is, like I said, a baseline of protection there now with hay bales and silt fence behind it. And again, the silt fence behind it appeared to have been modified in a better way, but again, I have not walked down there. We have on paper in our regulations the right to enter property.
Yes, you do.
And we have legal advice that is a little more tentative. So I did not want to go walk down there. And that was something that actually the property owner said to me the first time I spoke to him. He said, "You didn't even go down there and look at it. How do you know the condition?" Didn't need to walk down there. I could tell from the street that it was insufficient. And
Well, you could observe what you could see, but you couldn't, you
yeah,
didn't get
I
to the
just
top of
can't
the coastal
go
bank, so you don't know
specifically
that.
confirm that the silt fence is properly installed at the coastal bank now. It did look better than it was when I was there the first time, but that may have just been because there was straw bales in front of it now. So, but it did appear to extend further than it did.
So as far as the silt fence and the erosion control for the site, I'm gonna wanna see something from an engineer. I want a survey done. I want a professional that designs these systems, given the location. I think it's important enough that we compel that for the very near future, and that there's no work being done before everything's achieved. So I would like to build something like that into the enforcement that compels them and gives them to the next meeting to get that done. And if there's something that you feel that I'm off base on, then by all means tell me. But
It just
in
depends
this
on
case,
what
I think it's
specifics, because if you're looking for some sort of survey work or engineer review, it's likely a short timeline for them to hire somebody on it. My advice to the contractor and to the property owner from day one was cover the entire site in 3 or 4 inches of wood chips, drive a machine over it to work it into the soil, and make sure you have at least one, if not multiple layers of silt sock, so that you can not have a continuous flow down the whole property to the water, so you have something slowing things down.
So stabilize it until we can figure the rest out?
Correct. And I'll put down hay bales. And I said, that would be a good start, but you may need to do more than that. So I think stabilization is most important from a wetlands protection standpoint now, as to whether, like I said, right now there is a baseline level of stabilization that's there, or at least protection, not stabilization, but there is some sort of backstop there now, at least in the form of hay bales with some form of silt fence behind it, which may or may not be adequate. Getting a more adequate stabilization of the entire site so that nothing moves while this is in limbo, because the property owner told me, I'm putting a lawn in. it's gonna be stable. And I said, you can't do any work there without a permit. You can't do anything. You're not putting anything in without a permit from the commission. So you have to stabilize the site. So that, I think, you can put sort of anything you want in the EO, but I think having a requirement for, you could have it stepped in a way that you want the whole site stabilized through there being no exposed soil and, you know, you may want an additional sort of a break so that you don't have an entire run of the whole hill for things to build up, because if you get a big rainstorm, it doesn't really matter what you have at the bottom of the hill, it's not gonna contain everything. But if you have multiple steps, generally speaking, that slows things down enough. And then you could have, you know, I guess step one is you wanted to see the fill removed. So you wanted to see the fill removed, you wanted to see the site stabilized, you wanted to see a restoration plan filed. You could also add something where you say you want a qualified person to review the erosion control to confirm that, you know, the stabilization methods are solid. You know, similar to some similar filings we've had recently, you have, you know, site professionals or wetland scientists or people who are familiar with the erosion control process who can look at a site and say, yes, what you've done here is sufficient, or this part is insufficient, sediment is going to pass that, here's what you need to do. So there could be a situation where you have a qualified person, whether it's an engineer, a wetland scientist, whatever the commission is comfortable with, review the site's erosion control and stabilization and make recommendations for any necessary changes.
My one problem, or my one concern with that, Matt, is we're basically allowing them to work in the area without a permit, instead of saying, and without proper guidance, right? So we've seen what they've done without guidance. My push to compel them to bring in a professional to design the erosion control, I think, takes it out of the realm of they're just gonna do what they want, and maybe they'll achieve the intent, maybe they will not, but I think that, you know, where we're at, we issue a stop order and we say, stabilize it with silt. You know, we'll be looking for releases during heavy rains, and, you know, by the next meeting, we expect a plan of action presented to us from a professional engineer. Get them to that point where it's professionally designed, stamps on the piece of paper, and we have it to review. And if that looks good, then we allow it to move forward as part of the enforcement. But that's a subject to another discussion, I think. But if we just allow them to go and work, then I think we're doing the exact opposite of what we're supposed to be doing here. I think you were right to stop work, and I think, you know, stopgap solution is in place right now, and I think we have 2 weeks, you know, till the next meeting to get them, to get an engineer out there. It's gonna cost them a little bit more money, I'm sure, for the rush nature, but, you know, this is not a big lift for anybody that they bring in. And really what we want is the professional stamp behind it, knowing that whatever happened and led us to this point won't be continued death by 1,000 cuts.
So are you saying you don't want to remove the fill until you have a professional?
I don't want them doing it. I mean, my personal.
No, that's what I'm asking you.
I don't want them doing any more work until they have proper oversight. What's everybody else feel?
I agree.
As long as we feel it's stabilized.
But we can still require silt stock and.
Right.
You know, they got the bales,
Right.
that can stay. If Matt feels that, you know, there needs to be more silt stock, we say we want to see 2 more silt stocks put in along the slope parallel.
So in other words, adequate stabilization while we're waiting for a professional assessment and plan.
Yes, but no machines working, right?
Mhm.
So
Oh, yeah.
they can dig in some silt stock and they put all the hay bales they want, but I'd rather not see them working that site in any capacity, in any way more than digging in a silt sock, while they get to the next meeting. Thoughts, Matt?
Yeah, I would say the removal of fill is something that would likely be part of a restoration plan. And at the same time, the applicant has the right to come forward with whatever filing they want to do for the work they want to do here, so it's to their benefit to not have to remove all of the dirt fill that they brought into the site, if ultimately that fill might be in an area that is
Utilized,
approvable,
yeah.
or that ultimately gets a permit. So having them remove it when that's gonna be a big cost for them, that they might have to then bring it back. It makes more sense to let that part of it play out after restoration plan and any filing that they bring forward. Restoration and, yeah, I think you could say, you can ask them for whatever you want. You could ask them to get a PE plan for stabilization by the next meeting. It's just, it may not happen. No matter what kind of rush fees or anything they might pay, it just might not happen. So I do think there's definitely a need still to spell out what's needed on the site to prevent any release, because in the meantime, if they don't do it in the 2 weeks and then it's 2 more weeks, and, you know, we get some pretty big rains this time of year. If we get one of those like really big rain events, there's gonna be a big release. I don't know what was brought in for fill. I would assume it would be clean fill, but you don't know that, and I don't know what it necessarily consisted
I
of.
thought it looked black, didn't you?
It had a little bit of
It
a,
looked like loom. I mean,
no, I mean, to me, it didn't look like
Might not have
loom,
been
and I don't think it was
finished.
reprocessed, but it definitely had some sort of different look to it. But yeah, it may have been not lawn grade loom, it may have just been junky, you know,
Bank.
whatever. You certainly don't want it going into the bay in large quantities, so I think the point, step one is stabilization. You could mandate, you know, 2 cross-property silt socks be installed, or you could allow them to do hay bales instead of silt sock if you want. I think probably why somebody would say they want to do hay bales
Additional.
is because they're cheaper and you can do them yourself, as opposed to silt sock is usually you hire a company to come blow it out of a truck directly into the tube and lay it out, and it's pretty expensive.
2 additional silt stocks, Matt, you think, for now? So there's the existing down adjacent to the coastal bank.
Yeah,
plus or minus.
there's silt fence of some unknown
So
condition,
the silt
and
fence
there's
existing.
straw bales or hay bales or whatever you would call them in front.
Right, which those are 2 remain, and then 2 additional equidistant from, you know, split the difference between the existing and the pavement area, just have slowdowns. Sound right? All right,
Yeah.
and that's silt socks or hay bales. Yeah. In addition to, I guess we're working on a motion
Yes.
together here, so speak.
If
you wanna be heard.
And also, do you need to stipulate no further work?
You already have a.
Other than
The EO typically has that proportion in there where you check that off that says no further work can happen on the property until you have a permit. And then you have the next step, which is you are required to do A, B, C, and D.
So you check that, require the stabilization, define the stabilization you want.
Yep. And I'd like to see the fines included for each one of the actions that we've discussed here, that's, or otherwise applicable.
So a fine for the lack of stabilization, a fine for the taking down of trees, a fine for the fill.
Yeah, what else do we have, Matt?
Let me just finish writing this one sentence. So I have no further work. I have 2 additional silt socks or hay bale lines parallel to the coastal bank, equidistant between the coastal bank and a line X number of feet beneath Blair Drive. Essentially, what we're doing is splitting the difference between,
Yeah.
yeah, and I can probably actually just say Blair Drive. I think we want split the distance between the coastal bank and Blair Drive in three equal chunks, and we want the separating lines to be silt sock or hay bale lines.
And we should put a date on that, installed prior to the next meeting.
By 2 weeks, right?
Right, give them two weeks by the next meeting, whatever's the most appropriate word in that. And then fines, so we have fill, we have trees,
Fill trees and erosion control.
Soil
Stabilization.
erosion control.
Phil was going to be part of the restoration plan. So you're going to have a requirement for a restoration plan be filed in order to restore, in order to remove fill and restore natural
Let's
vegetation.
hold off on that,
Yeah, I
and
thought
let's
he-
just talk about the fines right now, okay? So they did fill, which means we're gonna hit them with a one-time fine for filling that. We will discuss the work to remove that in conjunction with whatever other steps we get to in this process, but
Mhm.
we're just gonna check off the fines right now. What
I
actions?
thought we were doing the steps on the EO right now.
We are, but we're still on the fine step. You skip.
We were talking about what the requirements were gonna be for stabilization.
Oh, I thought we cleared that. Did you not get them all? For stabilization. This is just the primary till next week. We want it stabilized until we get the engineer to come in and fill in the professional advice with the plan.
The third fine was for soil disturbance.
Yes.
You want before our April 22nd meeting. You want site stabilization
Site to include the hay bales.
Right, the language I had.
The language you got.
down there.
Yeah. And we want a plan
Very professional.
by a professional engineer
I don't think
with
we can do
the
it in 2 weeks.
outlining the proper erosion control methods to be installed while we work on the project.
I think that we could ask for a plan in 2 weeks, but I think to have things done in 14
Well, that's what we're
days is
asking on this from
just
the
a plan.
engineer.
Just,
Well, they can put in hay bales, they can put in
Right.
silt stock by hand.
Right.
We don't want them working in this. The first part was that,
Okay.
put in handwork, and the second part is engineer's plan by the next meeting.
Just the plan. by
Just the
then.
plan,
All right, that makes
because
sense.
then they're gonna come in and we're gonna make it part of the enforcement action, that they do that action, whatever the PE says, right?
Could it be, just for devil's advocate purposes, right, you're already mandating that they add 2 lines of protection, they already have something along the back end. Instead of saying a plan by a PE, could you say to have a PE
Sure,
familiar
the letter.
with
Yeah.
erosion control methods, review
Review.
the site and the erosion control methods that have been installed, and write a letter confirming that the erosion control that's there is appropriate and installed correctly, or making any recommendations for what is needed to stabilize the site until it can be restored and/or developed legally.
Yep.
Sounds reasonable.
But I do want that.
That way, it doesn't have to be
No, I agree 100%.
an actual plan.
But the one thing that I want to add to that is I want it stamped and sealed by the PE. All right, I don't want just a letter, I want his professional stamp stating that we can trust that that's not going to release. With all the stuff that you just said.
Let me finish this and then read it back to you. So, before the April 22nd meeting, we have site stabilization, as we already went through the language there with the parallel silt sock, and we have a PE that's familiar with erosion control methods, writing a letter that is stamped and signed stating that the installed erosion sedimentation controls are adequate and properly installed, or making recommendations for any work necessary for proper site stabilization and protection of the resource areas.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Then fines.
Then, I mean, for purposes of ease of office paperwork, the easiest thing would be to also include the requirement for a restoration plan on here. You just would give, obviously, a longer time frame for that. The alternative is you just issue this and you say, this is going to be discussed April 22nd, here's what you have to do by then. And then on April 22nd, you're taking this information and you're discussing whatever for restoration and issuing an updated EO for that. It doesn't really truthfully matter if there's gonna be a requirement, like let's say, you know, we get this letter, but the letter has, you know, recommendations in there, then you're gonna say, well, you have to do that by this date or else fines will be issued daily. So it really doesn't matter one way or another. Either way, I think there's gonna be multiple EO steps to this, so if you want to, I think it's important to let the property owner know that the commission would require restoration of
Yeah, at this point.
the site, but you don't necessarily have to include that timeline right now, but there's no downside to doing that.
I agree 100%. If we know that there's steps B, C, and D, it doesn't hurt to outline generally that there will be additional steps. However, we don't have to solve everything tonight. It's
Right,
going to be.
right, so take your first line of,
Right. And then
and.
we have an additional 2 weeks for Matt to get a better wrap
Right.
on it and maybe come with the recommendations that, since you've heard us in this discussion where we're going, come with something written up that you think will cover the board, and make sure that we bring this.
So it sounds like that's a two-pronged thing, and then are we also adding in the fines to go along with this?
We are putting the fines on this one, correct? Or you want us to hold off on the fines until?
Fines don't go with the enforcement order, they're issued, so whatever if you want to issue fines, you tell me and I do that.
Right.
Do you not want to do the restoration plan requirement now? Do you want to push that?
I just need to say that this is leading to restoration, essentially. And I agree
Do you
with
think
fines.
that it makes
because this
sense
is-
that we give them another month for the restoration plan?
Right, because we want to hear that
Yeah.
professional
Yeah.
response.
Yeah. So if we wait until next meeting and we give them a month, that's a month and a half. If we wait, longer than that, it's 2 months, it's 3 months, it's 4 months. Are we all confident that we want to say now that if we're giving you 2 weeks, we're going to give you an additional month beyond those 2 weeks to come up with the full plan and bring it and present it at the June?
Yeah, let's say
First,
presented
second.
at it would be the June 10th Conservation Commission meeting let's say to have a restoration plan filed with the Conservation Office by
Right.
May 28th. That would give our office that roughly 2-week period to review it before the June 10th meeting in order to give recommendations on it, so that we're not like, okay, great, we have a restoration plan, and I don't feel like I can speak to it, and then we miss something.
Okay. Is,
Yes.
yeah? Okay.
Yep.
That sounds good.
So I will add that to the EO, restoration plan to be filed by May 28th, will be discussed at the June 10th meeting.
Should you also add a complete by date?
Not
We
necessarily.
can issue the complete date the next time we talk about it, I think, right? Depending on what the engineer says.
And I mean,
on
you
the
can,
stabilization.
you can issue the complete by date on June 10th, assuming that you get the restoration plan, you can review it by June 10th, and you can issue the date by then. Yeah, I think that makes the most sense. And again, that also gives him the time to put together a filing for
Yeah, if that's,
any work, because
I'm open to
we're not
that.
specifying, as far as the restoration plan, like, you're saying, come up with a restoration plan to stabilize jurisdictional portions of the property. If that comes in tandem with a filing that says, here's what I want to do here,
Right.
or I have a restoration plan, I'm going to restore 50 feet from the coastal bank, I think that's something the commission would probably be okay with the understanding that you need to file something for whatever you're going to do on this property, and it needs to be permissible, you know, or else you're going to have to restore the whole site.
I think one action presents the opportunity for him to move forward with the other action, and it doesn't hurt us, so.
Right. And I can put language in here, you know, this restoration plan can also be filed with a
Can
filing
be
for any
combined with the-
future work on the
right.
property.
Okay. Any questions on that?
Nope, I got that, portion, so we basically have three main sections of the EO, not including, you know, stop working, which is already a separate thing.
All right. And then are you clear on the fines?
No,
Okay. You want to discuss the fines?
yeah, I don't think there was a
we didn't come to a
consensus
final
yet.
decision.
On fines, I think, so let's say on one hand, you have, you know, a scenario where you have fines for clearing of trees.
Trees, fill, and lack of proper stabilization.
Yeah. That's $900. If you did fill improper stabilization, that's $600, and then added, let's say, 10 trees at $300 a tree, now you're talking about $3,600. If that gets brought to the magistrate and the magistrate says, this is
Definitely
ridiculous, I've never heard of
ridiculous
anything like
right.
this before, and he didn't know he did anything wrong,
Yeah, but we do know.
and waives it, I know, and waives it, then, you know, it is what it is, but, you know, I think what you're looking at here is you're saying there's a situation where somebody knew what they were doing and did it anyways, and probably figured that, you know,
Who
it
would
won't be
catch
that
them?
big of a deal.
Yeah.
It won't be that big of a deal if the fines get waived. On the other hand, there's obviously a cost involved in having to stabilize the site and, you know, get a PE to review and then get a wetland professional to put together a restoration plan. So there's definitely already going to be a you know, a cost to this on the property owner that is
Right.
going to be something they understand, you know,
The
needs
other-
to be done because they didn't file.
The other thing I wonder is how do we go about really counting the trees accurately?
I can get like a rough
But that's the
from
thing.
aerial imagery, but it's like we're gonna be looking at like, okay, which one's a
looks a
tree and which
little-
one's a
Very
shrub? and
defensible in that.
Right.
It
It
looks
would
a
need to
little
be
arbitrary.
over a certain DBH of what's actually a tree, and then you're talking.
Right.
I mean, honestly,
I'd leave that as
removing all of the vegetation on
Yeah.
the site is also pretty damaging as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we're concerned with defending breast height of the tree discussions, and he's already destroyed all the evidence, I mean,
What are you gonna predicate it on?
Right, well, we have these pictures from 2019.
Did
I
you?
don't-
Oh, excuse me.
is it good, I didn't see that one, is it a good picture?
They're not good.
They're not
Oh,
great,
yeah,
but they're-
okay.
But you can see.
But you can see that they're fully developed trees
Yeah.
on the site, so I
Can you see
mean,
how many exactly?
Not
I mean,
from
you can
those.
guesstimate, you can
Can't
say,
guesstimate, yes, that would be.
This thing you have up is probably
Right.
the best in that you have.
no, I
like,
understand,
one,
so that's why I'm like,
two,
I understand we
three,
can't say
four,
there's 10,
five,
but there's
six,
1, 2, 3.
7.
Okay, if you split it out between vegetation and trees, that would give you another aspect
12, 13,
to
14,
find.
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
It's clearly more than 10.
It's clearly more than 10 if we come in and say 8.
Well, that's, so
But
could
again,
we,
you're still gonna have to defend it, and
Yeah.
Well, the imagery that we're looking at
It doesn't.
shows us that it's 10 canopies. It is 16 canopies, so, I do think that, we could probably make a good faith estimate that we can see 16. We said 10 just to be conservative.
Did you say the stumps were also removed?
Mhm.
So that's where the soil damage comes in. So that's another one.
that's
Yep.
right.
So
There's
that, I
another
mean,
angle on this. if
I
you're
was
looking
sort
for
of
it.
talking, you said, Marilyn said improper stabilization,
Mm-hmm.
but really what I was getting at before was the destabilization of the site by
Right.
the removal of
Two-
stumps,
two different-
Right.
whatever other herbaceous and shrub
Right.
vegetation was
All
there, all of
vegetation.
that
Yeah.
looks to
So
have been
that's what I
ripped
was
out.
saying. You
So
can split it out.
There's
you,
four.
you clear cut the site,
Mhm.
you destabilize the site, you brought in fill. Would, I think, be the most defensible. What would the fourth one be?
The improper the lack of erosion control and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, lack of,
That's what I was saying, yeah.
you could say something along the lines of
Erosion
like.
control is different than destabilizing the site.
Correct.
There's an
Yes.
action, and then there was a protective action that
Right.
they didn't take either. They
So
also
that would-
didn't file.
That would give you 4 things.
Yeah, lack of filing, but that's, I think, implied in each violation. It wouldn't be a violation if they had filed, so I'm not sure. Yeah, I just don't know if that's as defensible in this. I think it's implied that they didn't file, otherwise it wouldn't be a violation. So I think you
But
have
they could
4
file, and
defensible in
They could still
that.
Yeah.
get hit for something that they didn't get approval for. They could put in a filing and put in a rain garden, and then they clear cut 47 trees, and it's.
Yeah, but I don't think the two are separate in that way, that for the violation itself, which is what you're issuing the fine for, it doesn't matter if they got a permit for something else, they didn't get a permit for that.
Right.
So that's, I think you have 4
You do.
defensible fines there, one being the clearing of trees and vegetation, the second being site destabilization by removing of stumps and roots and topsoil, and the third is importation of fill, and the fourth is improper stabilization. If you want to split trees down into individuals and go with a number like 10 or something like that, I just don't think that's going to be as defensible.
No, somebody's gonna look at those pictures and et cetera and say, well, are you sure? So I think the single fine for now.
The other things you can defend clearly.
Yeah. It- Each tree is, you can see, but
I was gonna
it's
say.
still something that, I think you want a stronger position than a weaker.
You want something definitive.
Or if it does go to court, you could say, well, we fined for 1, but look at the picture. We assume there were 10, we could have fined a lot more.
Yeah.
That, leave it at that.
The, My one concern is this, you guys all remember May Ave, all right?
Yeah.
They just went in and clear cut everything because the contractor said, it's just easier for me to go clear cut everything and call it a day. So I'm not afraid of saying, I counted 16,
Yeah.
here's 10, just because of, there's gotta be a line that we hold people to, or else it's just, everybody thinks that it's okay to just, oh, prove it. Well, you did it, you proved that it wasn't. There's that back and forth at some point, so the magistrate will do what the magistrate will do, and whether or not we have our council appeal that decision and based on law.
I guess I'm also thinking about how we want to spend our time and how can we efficiently take care of this issue.
Yeah.
And I also think if he gets a slap on the wrist, he's gonna say, And our next issue, he's gonna be like, well, they're just gonna give me a slap on the wrist, oh well. There's clearly more than 5 trees, there's clearly less than, or around, so I think if we pick a number in between, that's defensible.
Yeah, but you can't pick a number. That's not
But the
right.
other factor to that, like from what you just said, is that if they do fight it and they win,
Right.
then they have the same feeling about it.
Right.
That
But
they
they
get away
have
with
to-
it, and you get to say, oh, look, they were being capricious, and they
Right,
were just trying to come
arbitrary and
after me for
capricious.
something.
Yep.
And
Yeah, you don't want that.
with 4, you're looking at $1,200 worth of fines, and you have
There's a
you
lot
have
of-
requirements
there's a
for
lot, yeah.
PEs and wetland scientists to put a plan together, and nobody's gonna take this enforcement order lightly.
And again, what's our end game? Our end game is just make this right.
Our
Just
end game was to get the
bring it
property
into
owner in
compliance.
compliance, right.
It's always to just bring it into compliance and make sure that the rules are followed, because that's the only one job we have here, is just to make sure that whatever the town votes in is what we apply, so. I'm okay, did straw poll, are we all okay with the 4 as they're listed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, Megan?
Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, I think I have some writing to do.
You want to vote to issue that as discussed?
Sure.
All right. Do we have a motion?
So I move that we issue this enforcement order as discussed vigorously.
Okay. All right, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Dot. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, 5-0 in favor. All right, well, we blew past our
Only by an hour.
public hearings, I apologize. I did not know that that was going to take as long, so let's see. Section A, public hearings, Baker Avenue, map 58, lot 92-6, notice of intent. I will now continue a hearing for the notice of intent for the proposed construction of a single-family home with a driveway, garage deck, roof water infiltration system, drinking well water, drinking water well, utilities, grading, and landscaping within the 100-foot buffer zone to a BVW and the 200 roof front area to an intermittent stream on Baker Avenue. Matt, can you brief us?
Yes, this was a project where it went out to peer review, and the peer reviewer said they couldn't review the information on the stormwater system that was proposed, or that it didn't, they didn't have the information to where that would make sense somehow in their review. And the commission allowed a continuance for the property owner to update the information in a way that the peer reviewer would be able to review for the commission. And we've continued it, I believe, once before, and I reached out, I believe, about a week ago to say the information receipt deadline has passed, we don't have anything. And we got a letter today from the applicant with a request for a 60-day continuance. He said he has been able to hire a a wetland scientist to do the work that he needs to do, and that there's just a time frame issue with them getting the work done. There were various other portions of the letter that I don't think are necessarily worth discussing right now. I did forward the letter, to the commission. Gave that in your information for the meeting so that you see that, but essentially they want 60 more days. So if the commission were interested in continuing that, that would be you'd be looking at the June 10th meeting.
Anything further?
Not unless you have questions.
Do we have questions? Let's open it up.
For discussion, is there anybody online either?
No.
Okay, all right.
Are we referring this to town council since there's a lot of case law here?
I did earlier. I did basically as soon as I got it. I did, and I have heard back. Yeah,
Okay.
I did. As far as tonight, it's as always entirely up to the commission. The commission gave, I think back when we were discussing this, last time we actually discussed this in a substantive way, I don't know that I made a specific recommendation, but I said at that time the commission can either deny it or continue it. The commission chose to continue it. There was discussion that he'd already spent the money on peer review. We may as well give him more time to see if that stuff can be wrapped up. It hasn't happened to this point. There's certainly nothing wrong with the commission allowing this 60-day continuance and seeing if the information gets provided.
Okay, so you want a motion to continue for 60 days?
Do we feel strongly that we're in the mood to continue? I am?
Yes,
Okay. Perhaps we have a motion to continue to June 10th.
I move that we continue to June 10th.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Dot. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Hearing none, we will be voted in favor 5-0 to continue to June 10th. Moving on. Section B, 135 Indian Pond Road, map 86, lot 16, notice of intent. I will now continue a hearing for the notice of intent for the proposed construction of an addition to a single-family home with associated septic system upgrades within the 200-foot riverfront area to a perennial stream and the 100-foot buffer zones to a BVW and bordering land subject to flooding at 135 Indian Pond Road. Matt, there's a note that says the applicant has withdrawn this filing. Do you have any comments?
Nope, we just got email notifications saying the applicant has withdrawn the filing. I think in some situations, that's up to the commission's discretion, particularly when somebody might request it during a hearing, like in front of the commission, and say, hey, I want to just withdraw it right now. You don't have to allow that. You can say, no, we're going to close it and vote on it. I don't think that would be appropriate in a situation like this. So I just put it in as they withdrew it.
It's withdrawn.
So it's withdrawn now as long as the commission doesn't have any issue with that.
Do I hear a motion to accept the withdrawal and close the hearing?
So moved.
All right, do I hear a second? All right, second by Megan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, we will, we voted in favor 5-0 to withdraw, accept the withdrawal and close the hearing. All right, now Matt, we have section C in this public hearing for updates to Kingston wetland protection regulation. Do we want to do this now?
I was going to say, can we take
flip
this
it?
out of order?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they
Let's
already
please
got
do
stuck
that.
through
Yeah.
an awful lot tonight.
Okay, so we are going to hold off. I apologize. Let's go, now.
58 Shore Drive.
All right, we're going to move to section D. 58 Shore Drive, map 39, lot 5, notice of intent. I will now continue a hearing for the notice of intent for proposed construction of 2 permeable paver patios, 1 impervious stepping stone path, and 1 retaining wall within the 100-foot buffer zone to the top of coastal bank and other coastal resource areas at 58 Shore Drive. Matt, could you bring us up to date on this?
Yeah, so this was discussed on March 22nd. The commission gave some input on what they'd like to see. We did receive an updated plan that shows a restoration planting area, does show the area of proposed grass, and removal of the stepping stones that were proposed have been removed from the plan. And we did receive a variance request letter. I'm just gonna skip through and just go with updated things. We had said something about an O&M plan for the pervious pavers not being provided. That has not been provided, but it could just be required to be submitted before a COC is issued. I don't see an issue with that. Like I said, a stepping stone path has been removed from the plan. Now the project proposes an increase in impervious cover of 40 square feet, increasing the percentage of impervious cover within jurisdiction from 22.7 to 23.4. So the amount of proposed increase has gone down. The applicant has requested a variance to allow this increase. They justify the increase because it is small compared to the size of the property, and the retaining wall is not expected to generate pollutants that will run off into the bay. They also cite the approximately 330 square foot restoration area as mitigation for this increase, explaining that the plantings will help slow and infiltrate any additional runoff from the wall. Those benefits may be minimal, as only a portion of the downslope land from the proposed wall will contain native plantings. The applicant has requested a variance for the retaining wall to be constructed as depicted on the plans, 27.2 feet from the resource area. They state that it is in a portion of maintained lawn area, so it can be legally permissible within the 30-foot buffer, which is typically a no landscape buffer, and will not be detrimental to wildlife movement or habitat. They again cite the approximately 330 square foot restoration area as mitigation for the variance request. The applicant has proposed a restoration plan with 2 areas of native plantings along the property line. The restoration area is approximately, Eric is there. Eric, do you mind throwing the plan up on, the updated plan on the screen?
Do we have this in the OneDrive?
I don't see it.
I can't
It's not
find-
there?
I can't, I'm looking, that's why I'm asking.
Oh, well, he'll pull it up on the screen. It should have been in there.
All right. See my screen here?
Yeah, we definitely don't have that.
Yeah, you can zoom in a little more, and that would be helpful.
So
Yeah, that's
this is the landscaping plan. Matt did a great job of summing up what we want to do here. We removed the stepping stone path just to further reduce the impervious coverage in the jurisdictional area. We added 330 square feet of plantings along the side property lines, and those plantings will consist of switchgrass, bayberry, and beech plum, tree and shrub species. The plan here is to remove invasive species, put the plantings as shown in the plan, and loam and seed the backyard. It's worth noting here that our retaining wall under your bylaw is landscaping, a landscaping feature due to the height. With that, and when you do the math out, we're proposing 8 times the restoration area when you compare it to the impervious coverage. We have 40 square feet of impervious now, being the retaining wall, and 330 square feet of...
Sorry, hold on one second, Eric. Can we get a little more volume on Eric? It was a little loud at first, and now he went down. Perfect.
Eric's mic
Okay.
is really high, and so it's a little distorted, which is
Yeah.
why he's turning it down, so.
All right, try again, Eric.
Sorry, guys, am I coming through okay?
Is that any better? Yeah, okay. I think that's good.
Well, I'll be quick, Matt summed up pretty much what we want to do here. This is the landscape plan. We have planting list down to the side here, as well as, symbols delineating the planting shown. We have some notes that the homeowner and landscaper will follow when doing these plantings. Our goal is to restore the vegetative marine time grassland cover on the property. Non-native and invasive species are going to be removed in accordance with your local bylaw. And we picked planting species, determine those species closely with the Conservation Commission. We got recommended species directly from Matt. Once restoration is complete, a report will be prepared and submitted to the Kingston Conservation Commission just for some oversight on the process. So with that, we submitted the variance request letter as previously requested by the commission, and I think that's it.
I can keep going if you want.
Please, Matt, Phil.
Sorry. Take some. All right, so the applicant has proposed a restoration plan with 2 areas of native plantings along the property line. I'll skip through things you already know from what we just said. As you can see there, the plantings are proposed along the property lines next to the adjacent houses, extending from the end of each patio to the resource area and about 5 feet into the yard. These plantings do restore some of the revegetated areas shown in figures 2 and 3, but not all of them. Specifically, most of the vegetated area parallel to the resource area is proposed to be converted to turf. And you can see that on the plan. All the green stippling is where the proposed turf is that does go right to the top of Coastal Bank. It is not clear how much the proposed restoration areas will benefit the resource area, as they are planned to be perpendicular to the top of Coastal Bank and won't do much to prevent stormwater runoff, contaminants, or trash from reaching the bay. The applicant requested a variance for landscaping within 30 feet of the resource area. Proposed landscaped areas are less than 2 feet from the top of Coastal Bank in some places. The applicant justifies this request as an improvement over existing conditions through removal of invasive species and revegetation with native plantings. However, loam and grass seed, not native plantings, will be added to most of the yard along the resource area. I added, figures on the staff report, and I have shared the staff report with the property owner and the representative, getting back to that, perennial garden area from the older plans that had naturalized over the years that were cleared recently. And I said the applicant proposes this restoration area both to restore some, but not all, of the revegetated areas that were cut without a permit between 2023 and 2025, and as mitigation for the requested variances. So that in itself, I thought, needed some discussion. The restoration plan states that the plants will be planted in clustered groups. However, for the plan to effectively restore a vegetated buffer zone on this property, the entire area must eventually be fully vegetated and maintained as such, which we typically will mandate through special conditions. The plan states that a report will be provided to the commission once restoration is completed. There was not discussion of monitoring. Typically, restoration plantings, you have 2 years of monitoring with something sent to the commission just so that it's followed up on and you know that things are properly establishing without staff having to do follow-up inspections, over and over at these properties. So based on the proposed plantings and landscaped area, the applicant has extended the limit of work to include most of the yard, almost up to the resource area boundary. The area behind the existing grass is considered naturalized under KWPR, and the vegetation removal that already happened would constitute an enforcement issue. The proposed restoration plan falls short of the benefits of a naturalized area to the bay, even if there was a prevalence of invasive and non-native species there before, which there certainly were some. I can't speak to what the entire composition of it was because I was not on site before it was cut. As I said, the restoration areas are perpendicular to the resource area and are likely to provide little protection from stormwater, contaminants, or trash entering the bay across much of the property line. While the applicant has every right to request any work they would like on the property, it does not appear they have given the commission good reason to approve turf planted all the way to the bank with ineffective mitigation. As far as the variances, similar to what I just mentioned, it's unclear that the mitigation will have, the effect that's intended in the variance request, that it would do much to mitigate runoff on the property. It really is only downslope for 5 of the 30 feet of the length of the wall. The commission can decide whether to grant the variance, ask for additional mitigation steps, or deny the permit. The applicant requested a variance to allow the larger patio and associated retaining wall to be built within 30 feet of the resource area, again citing this restoration area as mitigation. And same discussion, the commission can decide whether to grant that variance, request additional changes, or deny it. And then the commission should decide whether the proposed erosion control measures will be sufficient to stabilize the site. The applicant proposes a silt sock between the proposed work and the resource area. However, the applicant will need to do fairly extensive digging to remove all the buried trash, rugs, et cetera, from the property, and thus needs to be sure that this work does not cause sedimentation in the resource area. The commission could ask the applicant about the proposed sequence of work and potentially include special conditions about additional stabilization measures to be taken during trash removal. So the applicant now proposes 2 restoration areas planted with native vegetation, delineated by conservation posts along 2 sides of the property in the 30 and 50-foot buffer zones. The restoration covers some of the revegetated areas observed on aerial imagery, but some of the revegetated areas are proposed to be converted to turf with removal of any existing vegetation, root systems, and addition of loam. The commission should decide if the applicant has provided enough restoration to address the cutting that occurred between the 2023 and 2025 aerial images and to mitigate the requested variances. As part of the decision, they should decide whether to grant the requested variance for landscaping and especially the addition of loam and turf within approximately 2 feet of the resource area. I'm not going to repeat everything that I already said. We sometimes do that on these. So in total, applicants requested 3 variances in this project, providing the proposed restoration area as mitigation for all 3. However, the restoration area is also necessary to restore the naturalized areas that were cut between 23 and 25, so the commission should decide if that's sufficient to address both issues. The restoration area is smaller than the naturalized area present before 2023 and is not aligned in a way for the best protection of the bay. Bottom line, in way less words than what I just wrote and said, typically in these situations you see restoration area along the coastal bank. In almost all of the situations where the commission has issued mitigation or restoration plantings along the bay, they've wanted to see a strip on the coastal bank. You want to see that there to protect, protect the bay. You're protecting it from everything. You get a nice, wide, dense, established native vegetation there. You typically include some conditions on how they can be maintained so that they don't have to have trees pop up and grow there and block the view and create all sorts of other shading issues and everything on the property. So it's not something that's, intended to have to grow large, but unfortunately that is the location where you get the best effect. So while, we did coordinate on this as far as plant species, I shared some of the resources that we have for the right plant species, and that's why I wanted to get this back to them as soon as possible, because I know in this, it sounds like I'm not very nice, and I'm essentially saying that they, again, while this isn't a large-scale development project, that there's still, the commission doesn't have, in my opinion, the information to be able to say yes to the project, because you're essentially converting the majority of that site to turf. It is good to have the pervious pavers instead of impervious. Obviously, if it was impervious, there would be something absolutely the commission wouldn't be able to approve. And again, when you look at other properties there, you will see turf all the way to the coastal bank, and you will see situations where impervious numbers are higher, and you'll see all sorts of bad things that in, I would say, generally all of those cases, the commission didn't approve, because you didn't have the ability to. They already existed like that, or they were done illegally over time without the Conservation Commission knowing about it. But in this situation right now, the way this is laid out, I would say the commission doesn't have the information that you would want to say yes to the project. I don't know that it's far off, and the commission can talk about all this, and the commission can say, thanks, Matt, that's great, we don't care, we think this is fine, we don't think any of this is actually going to be problematic, but I'll stop talking now.
At this time, we'll open the hearing to public comment. Please share any relevant concerns or information that should be taken into consideration. If you'd like to, before you do, did you sign in?
Yes.
Okay. Just
Paul
need-
Walker, 58 Shore Drive. A couple things I want to point out is it's already grass down to the water bank. It's already down there. The only reason why I want to rip it up is all these astroturf and rugs and things that are, in my opinion, microplastics that are going to be leaching into the waterway. So, and I did send Matt an email saying I'm okay leaving it from within like 15 feet from the water untouched with the existing shrubs and weeds and all the stuff that are there, if that's what the board wants. I want to be able to lift up and get rid of all the astroturf and stuff that's under there, because it's obviously degrading and going in. and there's weeds and there's stuff already going through it, so there is grass all the way down there, so we're not changing anything, we're just replacing the grass to get rid of the stuff that's underneath it.
Can we hold up here just for
Sure.
a moment?
Please.
To the first point, I'm not sure that's accurate. I don't have evidence that the entirety of the site across the property, like you see right there, is currently turf all the way to the coastal bank. You have a section of that, and I think that shows up in some of the pictures that were shared with the commission from the different aerial imagery and real estate photos, that you did have an area, if you're looking at the property with the ocean above you to the right, where there was a little strip that looks like you had grass going straight down to the ocean, and that I think is still there. Everything to the left of that, which I believe is to the north, was in some capacity in a naturalized condition when the property changed hands, and had been for some years. If you go far enough back, you do see that there was this perennial garden. Even back then, I think there were some things seaward of there where there were more, native vegetation in between. You certainly don't have a condition where you had turf all the way down to the coastal bank. And to the other point, I don't think I got your email on that, and I apologize if you sent an email that said something about.
I did send an email asking you specifically, I'm willing to keep within 15 feet of the bank as is, but, respectfully, there's grass on the left-hand side all the way down here, all the way down to the rocks. There's grass there. There's weeds and stuff that are growing through it, but that is grass. It's grass all the way from here down, and here, there's a little bump out of where the weeds have really kind of overgrown the grass, but in here, I walk on it all the time down to the rocks. It's grass.
I'll just, as a point of order, I'm looking at some aerial imagery from 2019 where, from the inwardmost point of where the coastal rock starts popping out of the grass.
Are you on Zoom? Can you share yours on that?
I'm not on Zoom, no. There is 25 feet from that most inward rock face that was renaturalized, and that's in 2019. So over time, things do change, but in 2019, that was the conditions. The grass went up to 25 feet within the area, and then it looks like somebody cleared it to put maybe a perennial garden in there, which is how it kind of exists.
There was a perennial garden, I think it was before that. It was, when you're looking at the 2019 imagery, that's the area of the perennial garden, and the area around it has all naturalized.
Do you see these lines here? This is 2025. See these lines?
Yeah, that's like the remnants of
Yeah.
that. Yeah, there were, I think, probably timbers or something put in there. And it may be that once you cut everything there's grass mixed in with all that. So now you have what would seem like turf all the way to the coastal bank. It wasn't like that. From the commission's standpoint, you had a period of years where that site renaturalized, and at that point it needs a permit to take it from a naturalized condition to a landscaped condition. The commission has the 30-foot no landscaping zone. You're not going to apply that on a property that's already has landscaping within that area, but if you have an area where it's naturalized, it's naturalized. It's the same thing with agricultural, just in a different sort of timing capacity, where if something's agricultural and you have exemptions, if you're not engaged in commercial agriculture for more than 5 years, then you lose all your exemptions. It's no longer agricultural. It's a similar thing here with things like this. But I think a conversation towards having, I think what the commission would want to see here, they want to see the bay protected as much as possible, right? Like we talked about, you have other properties that have no protection. Every property that you review, you're going to want to see some form of protection there for the bay, for the wetland resource areas. So some sort of a strip there that's parallel to the bay goes a long way. You can still have, most people that have these still have an access through it. If there's, you have a dock or a stairs down or something, a step down to the beach or whatever it is. But over the rest of that, you typically do see that as mitigation. The square
concern
footage
that
on the
I have with
mitigation
grass-
is relatively, high for what the increase was. It's just not in a space that functionally does what the commission wants it to do, unfortunately.
The concern that I have with allowing turf up to the coastal bank is that any anything that's put on that grass in perpetuity, once it rains, it's gonna wash. It's gonna go straight into the bay, it's gonna contribute to all the things that we're not supposed to promote, and it is one of those things where there is a cumulative effect. So as we go through these properties, I think we kind of do a pretty decent job of kind of taking the same approach on all the filings that come in front of us, which is parallel to the coastal bank. That's how we get the growth that's
Right.
with the roots that are gonna hold everything together. And if we don't have that, then we just have some pretty landscaping that happens to be maybe natural speed to the area. So from that perspective, my personal stance on this is that we need to see more. But each and every one of us has our own opinions. So that's mine. What's everybody else think?
No, I think you have to get more planting across that end, and not just the two here. They're not really doing anything.
Because you've got that big space in between.
Anything
It just
that moves towards the ocean is just gonna go right in.
May I,
There's existing-
May I try to, I might be able to save everybody some time in this, because I think every commissioner is probably going to have the same mindset on this. It's out of character for the commission to approve this, where on other sites it was always, you want to see things parallel. Would the commission, so let's say same square footage gets applied parallel from the coastal bank up, would the commission be okay with the project in that capacity? What I'm thinking about is, if the answer is yes, would you be willing to issue orders of conditions pending the submission of an updated plan for my review?
I'll go first. I don't know that if we divide that area across the width of the property, I don't know how, there's no dimensions on it. So I'd want to see something substantial along that back edge. I don't know if it's 10 feet, I don't know if it's 6 feet, but it needs to be something that we think will have a good success. You know, if it's 2 feet wide, it's not going to do much, right? So I'd like to see something a little bit.
Maybe Eric can quickly do that calculation out and see what does 330 look like across the property line, maintaining the same small, narrow access point to the bay that exists. You know, what does that look like in terms of distance, and would that number need to increase in order to get a meaningful distance from the coastal bank?
I'd say, generally speaking, they're probably 50 feet wide. Eric, is that about right?
I can speak to that, and, you know, I can work through it with the commission right here on the computer. So what we have here, this is a 5-foot landscape bed. The property itself is a rectangle, and we're about 50 feet wide, right? So I think 6 foot, you know, walkway, something like that would be fair. And Mr. Walker can speak to where access would be. But if we're 5 foot wide landscaping bed and we have a 50 foot wide area here, that's about 250 square feet. And if we carve out a, you know, 5 by 6 foot area, that's another 30 square feet we'd be subtracting from that. So, you know, if we leave the sideline plantings and add another 200 square feet of plantings, I think we'll have something that, you know, will provide some planters in an L shape here, will provide access, will protect the resource area, and I think that could work for everyone. It'd be great if you let me know your thoughts on that strategy.
I think personally, I think 10 foot probably is what I'd want to see there. I wouldn't want to see the grass go all the way up to the rock, because even in that 6 foot walk path, there's something else we can put in there. Impervious, I'm okay with, but I wouldn't want to see the grass go straight up, because we want to keep something. We want to create kind of an infiltration zone to some extent of the word, to stop, you know, the lime and phosphorus and everything else that's going to be on the grass from just running straight down the rocks. So that's my take.
That's kind of the email I had sent to Matt was, you know, I'm willing to do, just tell us what
Yeah.
you want to do.
Yeah, and apologies if I missed that. I do not recall that, or I would have definitely wrapped that into here.
I just have a couple quick questions. There are conservation posts, because I can't find that plan in the.
The conservation posts are called out. They don't show up specifically. It has the detail on the top left, coordinate with Kingston Conservation Commission. So it does specify they're going to be there. It just doesn't
Okay.
show exactly the layout
And
of them.
are the dimensions for the dock on there? Because those were asked for as well.
Yeah, dimensions for the dock is 10 by 12, that's labeled on the plan. I show the symbols for conservation posts, they're just a little small to see, but generally they're every 3 plantings, but again, that will be coordinated with the commission. And, you know, I think for the sake of getting this wrapped up tonight, you know, if the applicant is open to a 10-foot wide planting strip at the rear of the property, we could definitely follow up with the plan that shows that and, you know, work closely with Matt to get something to show that improvement.
All right, and obviously we want to see the posts carried through the planting area, so it's not just the
Yes.
sides, we need it across on the back.
Yes, the posts will be, you know, every planting associated with this proposal, we'll have a post within a few feet of it, just so, you know, that this area will never be disturbed or cut down in the future.
I will offer up that in similar situations in coastal mitigation plantings, people have asked, can I use a small post and rail fence or a fence with the posts with the little rope across it? And the commission has allowed that as long as they have the conservation placards on the posts. Like, there's a requirement that it stays there in perpetuity, either as conservation posts, or if you like, instead, you could have something that, you know, might be appropriate for a coastal situation and have kind of the big rope
Mr. Walker?
thing. They're just
You
little,
have to be at the
placards.
microphone. Sorry, it's for the people who are listening
I'm
at
sorry,
home.
yep, my bad.
Yeah, they're basically, you know, typical conservation posts are a 4x4 post in the ground. They're 4 feet long. There's at least 2 feet in the ground, 2 feet above, and there's a little placard on it that says conservation area, no work beyond this point. We have them here for sale as a courtesy that have a little blackbird and a cattail on them. They don't look horrible. But in some cases, people have wanted to use a fence instead. I don't think the commission would approve any sort of a big, giant fence there, and I know would you really want one, but something decorative there as opposed to conservation posts, since it's right at the edge of your yard and your beach approach there. I think the commission would be okay with that, as long as they have to have the conservation posts in perpetuity. So if you ever replaced the little posts or the fence or whatever, you have to make sure the placards are back on there in that location. And the idea is to protect all the plantings behind it so that it's obvious to you, the landscapers, or anybody else that everything back there has to be natural. And again, there are special conditions that always get included in permits for this that specify exactly how you can maintain those areas, so that, like I said, you don't have to let all of it grow up to be a giant tangled mess with invasives and trees and everything else. We want the species that are there, and you're allowed to let any other native stuff grow in there, but you are welcome to prune out non-natives and, you know, occasionally prune down things other than what's been planted there, so.
Does all that make sense?
Yeah. But I can have low-growing shrubs in the front line there, right, that are acceptable
In terms of like, in that area?
in the 10-foot strip there.
Yeah, the 10-foot strip essentially would be pretty much the same as what is proposed on the sides. You'd be welcome to switch out species if you want lower growing things there. The point is just that they need to be dense. It needs to become a barrier that will help with stormwater, with contaminants, with creating wildlife habitat, with catching any trash that might be blowing around from a contractor working next door or something like that, that just kind of stops everything from going to the bay. If switchgrass is too tall for that spot for you, we've had other people use either beach grass or a little blue stem. There are some things that don't get quite as tall as switchgrass in that situation.
Do we have any other comments from the commissioners? Oh, we have the opinion that we've heard enough on this and we can close the discussion. All right. Do I hear a motion to close the hearing?
Before you get to there, do you, if that's the path that the commission is going down, do you want to talk about any special conditions, right? I've already explained that the commission uses a typical coastal special condition for all these permits, stating no outdoor chemical fertilizers, herbicides, things like that within jurisdictional areas. You know, we typically have the whole, if you use a dumpster on this, it stays closed. There's a lot of stuff that we like typically throw in as special conditions that will likely end up in standard conditions going forward. I mentioned there was in here an update to the commission after the restoration work is done, but there's nothing in there about any follow-up on it. There's no 2-year, you know, monitoring and reporting. That's something that the commission can include as a special condition if you like. I'm trying to think. There was the O&M plan. You'd want to see an O&M plan for the pervious pavers submitted before a COC is issued. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything else the commission would consider on this particular project. I don't think there was anything else that I flagged as something that was absolutely necessary in this case. We weren't really prepared in that sense to discuss, you know, issuance of the permit.
And nothing more about the variance request?
I mean, you really would have to approve all 3 of the variances in order to issue the permit. So I would say that should be in, I would say that would be in your motion that you're issuing those 3 variances, and then we do wrap that into the permit as a special condition as well.
Before we close the hearing?
Yeah.
Well, in the motion to, if we're gonna discuss approving, it would be in the motion to approve and accept the variances and approve the NOI as discussed. I think that covers it, if I'm wrong. Okay?
Yeah, and we typically do include those as a special condition. We usually do say as a special condition, the commission has approved the following variances in the issuance of this permit. But yeah, as you said.
And just for the record, we have received the letters, it's part of the record, and if we approve it, even if we don't specifically state it, we approved it based on the fact that they applied for the variances, and if we didn't say specifically exclude it, then I think it's inherent that we did approve it, so.
Did you, what is your feeling on restoration follow-up? You know, typically with a restoration plan, there is, like I said, that 2-year monitoring and reporting. It's usually, you have to have some qualified person, you know, usually it's a wetland person that just reviews once and writes a report for the commission. It's usually submitted to our office in December of each year, starting the year following completion. So if you finish it in September of 26, you're not sending the first report to us until December of 27, and then you're sending one December of 28. And that allows the commission, or at least our office, to review and make sure that these restoration things are actually establishing the way they're supposed to.
We in agreement? 2 years?
Yeah.
2 years is our typical, right, Matt? Okay. All right. All right, at this point, Matt, is there anything else we need to discuss before we close and vote? Did you have any?
One final run through.
One quick comment on the dumpster. It's going to be on the street side. It won't be anywhere near the backyard because there's a very narrow gap to get any type of anything down the side of the house. It's very narrow. So the dumpster would be out front by the driveway.
Yeah, it's pretty standard language. Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, no contractors ever like this language. They hate it. But I think it's super important because especially subcontractors, they just don't tend to care.
Tell me about it.
It's much easier for them for the dumpsters to be open, but then everything that's even the loose
Yeah, I had
cellophanes and papers and everything else, like,
I
we
had a
typically have been
yard full.
issuing the dumpster language and also specific condition that says any trash or construction debris entering Kingston Bay will be cause for immediate issuance of a $300 fine. We've been including that pretty much every coastal one as a way to get the contractors to understand, like, there will be fines issued if this happens.
Are we ready for a vote?
So you want to close the hearing?
If we're ready for a vote, yes. Do we hear a motion to close the hearing?
I'll make that motion.
All right, a motion by Dot, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Marilyn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so 5-0 that we closed the hearing. Do we have a motion to approve or issue the NOI? Matt, what is it? Approve the NOI?
Yeah, you're going to approve the request, issue orders of
Issue
conditions,
OLCs.
pending the receipt of the updated plan to the satisfaction of the conservation agent, with
And
the
as
special
was
conditions
discussed.
as mentioned, including the issuance of 3 variances.
Okay. As discussed tonight. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll make that
All
motion.
right, we have a motion from Dot. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Marilyn, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Say nay. Hearing none. We have approved approving the NOI and issuing the OLCs as discussed tonight and accepting the 3 variance requests. Thanks.
I just zoned out. Did you vote? Yeah?
Yeah, we voted
Perfect.
5-5.
So just for clarification now, typically what happens is we prepare the permit, and the permit is then signed at the following meeting, which would be April 22nd. In this case, I need that updated plan from Eric and need to be able to review it and everything like that. So the sooner that can get to me, the better. And you can probably still meet that timeline if that works.
All right, and just
Thank you.
Something
no work until
next week.
you get the permit. Okay.
Matt?
Say again, Eric?
Yeah, I said that.
I can work on getting you something next week by Wednesday. If
That should work.
All right.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a good night,
Thank
guys.
you, have a good one.
Who's Mr. Shoemaker with?
No. Oh,
No, what company?
Mackenzie,
Oh, McKenzie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
going back to KWPR.
Hang on a sec. Need to find it.
Excuse me.
Sure do.
Section D, Section C. All right, so we'll go back to Section C now. Updates to the Kingston Wetland Protection Regulations. I will now open a discussion on updates to the Kingston Wetland Protection Regulations. Matt, can you bring us up to speed?
Sure, I just have to do my 2-factor authentication for the 10th time tonight. Just sort of backing up a little bit, the way this works and the genesis of it. So the commission, 2 years ago at this point, I think, rewrote KWPR, put it in front of town meeting, it was approved. It was then appealed to the Attorney General's office, which took a long time, and then it was approved by the Attorney General's office, and we didn't find out about it for a long time. So we've had our updated our updated bylaw. I think I just said KWPR.
Yeah.
Bylaw. The bylaw was updated and is official. We have not necessarily been using it because the idea was once the bylaw was updated, we were going to update the regulations, what we call KWPR. In order to do the regulations, you have to hold a public hearing, put out public notice, which we've done for this. It's something that I thought I would just kind of do and we'd get it done, and that was very clear that was never gonna happen. So my concept for this was we put the public hearing notice out so that if any member of the public wanted to discuss this with the commission tonight, you could do that. I provided information to all of you just to have some form of a directional conversation with any specifics that you would want to see or things you'd want to discuss. And my plan is to come out of this meeting or a successive meeting with marching orders from the commission, and then we get a consultant to give us a quote. I'm already working on getting a quote from a company that we've worked with before on this sort of thing, and have them do the legwork, because I consistently find typos and sections of KWPR that connect to a section that's wrong, and I don't want to be responsible for that. And I don't feel like I can really tackle all of that and like make sure that I've done everything I should do with that. And I think there are things that a consultant can really help us with if we have some conceptual ideas and want to really hammer down on what the best application of that would be. Ultimately, then you have town council that will review it and they will give us advice and they'll say, this part isn't something that's legally defensible, and you're welcome to still keep it in there if you'd like, but, there will be discussions about those sort of things before it is official. So you've just opened a public hearing. Like any other public hearing, it can be continued until it's closed. So I think the opening of this allows the commission to discuss it. It doesn't have to happen tonight. You don't have to come out of tonight with everything. You can ask me questions and have me go do work in between now and the next meeting. Whenever we're ready to take this to a consultant, I'll have the quote already ready to go, and I believe we'll already have enough money set aside to do this. I don't think it will be expensive. But the idea out of this is to have it match the bylaw so that there's no disagreement, and clarify anything that needed clarification, fix all the typos, fix all the essentially broken links, change language that's confusing or allows for improper interpretations. And it gives the commission the ability to fix some things that aren't protective enough, or fix some problems that we've seen over the years in some of the language or some of the things we're seeing that weren't around at a certain point. Things like alternative technology septic is something that doesn't really show up in our regs at all, and probably would be beneficial if it did. So I've outlined some things. One example of the bylaw and the regulations not matching was one of the things that the commission wanted with the updated bylaw was for abutter notification distances to go from 100 to 300 feet. And that is in the new bylaw, but our regulations say 100 feet. We've never changed that. It hasn't been terribly long since I found out that the bylaw was actually in effect. At any point, we could have, similar to the information receipt deadline, updated KWPR specific with that one thing and reposted it and had that be official, but we didn't. So now is the opportunity to get all of these things connected to be just one thing, 300 feet on abutter notifications, 2 weeks for continuance information receipt deadline, and all sorts of other things that can be added together on this. So I don't know what the best method for you to go through some of the stuff tonight would be. I did go through and do just kind of a cursory red line of things that, and it wasn't changing language it was more like me adding comments here and there, like it would be good to talk about this, it'd be good to talk about that. One of the things I think is important we should do is, we've had a lot of things we've wanted to add to the standard conditions that we've discussed over the years. I have some of those things on a list, some of the things I don't. I think it would be good for us to update all the standard conditions and have that be attached to the document of KWPR, because I think it's more defensible that way. And that way, if we ever want to update the standard conditions going forward, we would just do the same thing we would do to update KWPR. Yeah. Do you want me to start going through some of the comments like on the red line that I had, and we'll just start having some of those conversations? Or do you want to just talk, for starters, about, I would like it if we could do X, Y, or Z, and I can take notes on that, and maybe that's a good way to start?
Yeah, I have something I'd like to throw out, if that's acceptable. So I've been thinking, again, I've spent some time on this commission, and I see how we go through enforcement, and oftentimes we have people that are repeat offenders, for lack of a better definition. And I'm thinking, what's a way that we can be more proactive instead of waiting for something bad to happen and then we have to get into the whole enforcement thing? One of the things, like we were talking about the coastal bank, there are some highly sensitive areas within the ones that we protect. And looking through this document, on page 65, when they're talking about certain resource areas, and they say such as vernal pools, streams with native eastern brook trout, on and on and on. So I'm thinking there are some of these areas that need to be particularly focused upon, like spring, migration, vernal pools, breeding, things like that. And I had an unhappy experience recently through, I don't want to lay blame, I'm not accusing, I'm just saying it was something that happened where landscapers using leaf blowers basically decimated wood frog areas and wiped out wood frogs. I'm thinking if we put some parameters on work times, if we don't allow, and again, this might be pie in the sky, but I'm thinking, if we somehow include not allowing work in certain areas, like a vernal pool area, from X date to X date, I mean, start of spring, give it a month, and then go rake and do whatever you need to do if you're contiguous with a vernal pool, or if you're in vernal pool jurisdiction. I'm looking for a way to protect and apprise people of that, and whether it goes into the conditions or into this document or whatever, but I want to call attention to the possibility of being able to protect it in a better way by disallowing, say, landscaping action during that short spring period. And that might be just too crazy, but it occurred to me, because then we end up doing lots of enforcement, so.
My question just on that, just
Sure.
aren't we already requiring them not to be doing work unless they come and talk about
It's,
approval?
but again, if they're approved to do it, it's a timing thing.
Can I
It's a timing
clarify
thing.
something on this that I think in what I just wrote down, what you're getting at is, can we prohibit work during key time periods
Yeah.
in landscaped areas
Right.
adjacent to vernal pools?
Yeah.
You can't work in vernal pool habitat, you can't work in any area that's within 200 feet of a vernal pool that's in a natural condition, but the vernal pool envelope as defined doesn't include landscaped areas. So you'd have the right to go into that landscaped area and do whatever it is that you do. You're not allowed to put things, blow things, whatever, into the habitat associated with vernal pools. But I think what the question is when you have areas where your vernal pool envelope overlaps landscaped area that is assumed to be of a legal origin, do you have the ability to prevent people from doing work within a time period that would be damaging to vernal pool species? And I don't know the answer to that, but we can certainly ask and see if there's other towns that have done anything like that.
And what made me think about it is, I know when we're dealing with fish and things like that, or oyster beds, I mean, there are certain time parameters that we have established, have we not?
Yeah, there are things where.
So I'm following that
No.
lead.
Diadromous fish,
Yeah.
for certain time periods, or.
Right.
Yeah,
Because I was thinking of the Forge Pond working and hearing that.
yeah, yeah.
Right. Anything else at this moment that we want to discuss? I mean, obviously, we've opened the hearing and we all have Matt's contact, and
Mhm.
this is something that I usually just sit at a computer and type some things up. We can all move forward with that, but we've opened the hearing, we can continue, or we can continue to discuss.
Yeah, I think, like I said, there's nothing wrong with continuing. This process can take as long as you want. I would just say, I think if we're gonna continue and just have the commission kind of work on thoughts in advance of a meeting, that we try to keep it on a short timeline of doing it, so that, because we've had some other things before where I've been like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, and then like
Yeah.
kind of peters out, usually on my end, like me not bringing it back enough, so I just don't want to forget about this one, it is important. Anything else the commission wants me to look into? I said I would look at other towns. Typically, my understanding is ours are pretty solid in terms of protection, but there may be some other towns that have some things that that might be good ideas that I can look through. And it is something we could ask a consultant to do, but I don't want to get involved in having a consultant do like a sweeping review of
Right.
X number of towns, because it's going to cost us a fortune. I can just kind of flip through and see if there's anything in particular. And I will say, and probably say it again and again, that the commission should make sure that they always consider reason in these regulations, that if the regulations get too strong and people start complaining too much to the selectmen or something, then it will probably be in a bad way at some point. So I think I don't think that's gonna happen with this board, you know, but I think everything should always be backed in science as
Science and
typically
law.
we
Science and
have.
law.
And just make sure that, you know, I think one area that I put into the notes was there are some things that I think should be a little stronger as far as septic systems. You know, the commission, and rightfully so, right now with the regulations, does not allow septic systems or any component of them to be within 100 feet of a wetland, but it doesn't say anything about the outer 100 feet of the riverfront area. Technically, vernal pools are fully protected because of the language in there now that the outer 100 is the buffer zone, and you can't have that in the buffer zone. So I think there's opportunity to improve that. I think there's other towns that have even increased distances beyond that. So I have some notes on some of that, and I will try to look for more language on that if that's something the commission would be interested in. Obviously, we've been seeing a lot of septic issues. There's gonna be a lot of ADU things. Again, you don't want to be just restrictive for no reason, but it's very obvious that septic systems are a problem for water quality and wetland health. So I think having more prohibition in there while also detailing where and how alternative technology can be used to
Yes.
overcome that, just puts it right in there instead of having to get to these situations where the commission has to say, we're probably going to say no to this.
Yeah, do it better.
And we suggest that you come back with a better plan. I mean, there can be things right in there that says the commission may approve, you know, a septic system within certain distances, provided that it is a proven design shown to decrease
the
nitrogen,
TSAs and-
phosphorus,
yeah.
or any of the chemicals or contaminants of concern for downstream wetlands. So there's that, and then there was the whole conversation about impervious surface. We have to figure that out. It's really kind of wacky. And then whether the commission wants to keep upholding the same buffer zone protections for flood zone. And then maybe yes, the answer might be yes. But I don't know that a lot of towns have things like no structure setbacks off of flood zone. Which gets me to another conversation where you had wanted in the past, the last time we talked about updating KWPR, to include something in there that just states right off the bat that the commission will review sea level rise information, climate change information in order to review projects. And if you're doing that, you probably do want to have additional setback areas off something like flood zone, because flood zone is likely to increase over time.
Right.
So it's just something that I think is going to have to be discussed with the commission and make sure. I think some of the things that are in there now were just oversights that have added to protection, but don't always make sense. In some cases, I think it does make sense to prevent development in a certain area that you know is going to flood and flood worse, but in some other areas, it may not. So it's a little bit of a nuance that I think could be discussed and maybe not changed at all, but maybe changed. I don't know.
I come at some of this stuff from a slightly different perspective than just the conservation side of it, right? It's because what I do is I set up projects, and so everybody who designs a project starts someplace, and they start with the regulations. So there's the mass regulations, and then there's the town regulations, right? If we think along the lines of that, we're essentially telling every engineer or wetland scientist or whoever's running a project or designing a project up front what they can and can't do, so that we have, you know, kind of a starting point. And then they talk about what they can do and they can't do, and the better we do in our regulations, and I don't mean that from a strict, you know, no, you can't do anything perspective, but if we communicate well, we can raise the bar to achieve what the town already asked for, right? We have bylaws.
Yep.
Without even asking for any additional areas, we can just better discuss the path to approval, because ultimately we're trying to balance growth with conservation.
Yeah.
And the way that we do that is by having a definitive document that clearly states these are issues, and part of that is the regulation. Like, for example, septic systems. a lot of the times, there's this guy talking here, they're talking this, and they're using different definitions, when really there's only one set of definitions that are gonna be used, because we're looking through one side of it. So I think that if we can dig in a little bit on that and provide a little bit more clarity, like every specification in the construction industry starts with a section that includes references. So if we reference a certain document, we're telling the engineer that, no, you have to think about this from Title V perspective and KPR, KWPR. What do we got?
I can see the train from here. I don't think that's ever
Oh.
happened. They cleared a bunch of trees along the power line.
Yeah, what was all that?
Yeah, it's Eversource doing their, they had some long overdue right-of-way clearing through the property. I don't think you used to be able to see the train from there.
Yeah. So from that perspective, I would like to try to check off a little bit on that, because
Yeah.
we can get better projects at the start just by being a little bit better with the
Definitive.
documents that
Yeah.
we've actually issued to those people to review, so.
I think that's a huge thing with this, and that there may be a way to even do some more sweeping reorganization of it in a way. Maybe they'll have some advice on that, because I do think there's been some sections of it that just kind of were, at least when I first started, there were some things that contradicted even within the document that we've fixed since then, but I do think having a very clear outline, and I even put a note in there that I wasn't sure if it would be beneficial or ill-advised, but even having like not like a mission statement, but like right in the beginning of the document, that this isn't intended as here are your minimum setbacks. The idea is you have to show a project that isn't detrimental to the resource areas
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
And just, here are the guidelines that can help you get there, but you see a lot of this, like, but it meets the minimum setbacks. And it's like, but that
Right,
doesn't,
they're
that doesn't
not
mean that that's a
definitive.
good project, that it's not still detrimental, it's,
Like a vernal pool at the bottom of the hill.
yes, so it's not, you can just go through and say you've checked all these boxes off. I think having a more holistic look at that of like, you have to show overall that this project isn't beneficial, it isn't damaging. And
Well,
here's
it's a
how
do
you-
no harm thing, yeah.
Well, it's specifically stated, it's cumulative impacts, we're supposed to review it. That doesn't mean that one plant is in itself going to change the world, but if there's 47 of those plants and they're not supposed to be there, did that impact, or if that goes to 470
Right.
plants, what's the impact at that point? So from that perspective, if we have, some type of purpose statement for the understanding, then that focuses, I think, the direction that the intent here is to do no harm. And we have bylaws that we have to
Right.
answer
And it-
to.
And focus on the elements that we're protecting,
Yeah.
whether it's water quality, sea, oyster beds, all, and definitive, in that way it takes some of the mystery out of it.
I feel pretty strongly that almost every project with enough work could theoretically get to the point where it
Oh,
can be done. It's
you want
just,
to get to yes.
there's a money concern that
Sure.
diminishing returns. So if we lay it out well, I just think that we're at least in a starting point where when that engineer says to the client, before he shells out, $12,000 on a full project, where he says, hey, there's some things here that I don't know we can check off, and they're pretty big and they're laid out pretty clear. So maybe I'm telling you that maybe that's not something that's gonna work. It'll probably still come in, but then it's it's on them.
They chose
It was written
to
down,
take a whack at
yeah.
it, sure.
That's all I had, Matt. I mean, I will have more, but I will email you.
I know you will.
The mosquito discussion we had last week, right? So,
Yeah.
That would be, I think, something, if we could find something in there and use that to the benefit of the community, I think that would be a worthwhile.
Okay. Then I would say, do you want to continue just the 2 weeks?
and have, gives us a chance for a first really solid read-through.
All right, do I have a motion to continue for 2 weeks?
So I'll move that we continue it for, till the next meeting.
Next meeting, which is for 26?
April
22?
22?
22, right? 22.
22. April 22nd.
If that's okay.
Okay.
I can send in my notes.
So we have a motion from Marilyn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Megan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so that's 5-0 in favor, continue to April 22nd. All right,
I think we're
Meeting
just going back
minutes.
to minutes and updates.
all right, so we have meeting minutes from March 11th, 2026, which
Yes,
is
we
like
do.
last week. We're doing really good there. Good job. Do we have any edits?
They're all set. Georgie took care of it.
Okay, perfect.
She's good.
I believe we were all, is there anybody who wasn't here for that meeting that we need to abstain?
That one,
Probably
no,
Brian.
it said absent, no.
Just,
Let me just check the first page. I know I was here. Virtue absent, none. All right, so if there's no additional edits, do we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the minutes of March 11th, 2026.
All right, we have a motion by Marilyn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Megan. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the motion carries 5-0 to approve. Update, 68 Evergreen Street, admin review, please, Matt.
yep, right down the street here, right across the street from Grady Consulting. I was driving by and saw some tree work being done there,
Is
and
that the office building?
the office building, we did a RCOC, we did a COC issuance a couple of years ago on that, before the property was sold. So it's under a new owner now. I thought, like, I should pull over and go check on that, which I did, and I just got, asked the tree person to come down and asked him, I said, what are you planning on doing here? I didn't have a permit on any of this. Are you actually gonna be cutting any trees? And he said, well, we're gonna cut a couple of small ones near the street that are right under the power lines. And I said, well, this needs some form of permitting. He got on the phone with, there's a landscaper that takes care of the whole property. I spoke with him on the phone. He was working for the new owner of the property who has an office inside, but he wasn't able to come out. I explained the need for permitting. We talked a little bit. I said, if you can get an admin review to me right now, I will approve it because I believe the work is easily approved under an admin review form, and that way I don't have to take enforcement action on this. So we did. I received an admin review about right away. 4 small trees were cut down right up against Evergreen Street. It's by, I thought it was a stream. I think on the COC plan, I think it's called a ditch. I don't know if it's a ditch or a stream. It was flowing when I was there, but it had recently rained and everything like that. So I don't know if it's a stream or a ditch. Either way, it was jurisdictional, and work shouldn't have happened. I have had correspondence with the new property owner, and we talked a little bit about this, and I also talked about the rain garden at the site. I could tell from being on site that vegetation had been cut that shouldn't have been cut. And I said that they would have to get their landscape person in contact with me, walk the site a little bit later in the spring once things have started to pop up so we can really tell what was cut, what wasn't, like where there are deficiencies there that they'll have to fix. So there is a potential enforcement issue there if they don't reach back out on this, but I expect they're gonna reach back out. I think all in all, it will be a good, proper new property owner interaction towards them getting the property into full compliance. He said that the cutting of that rain garden area would have happened before he bought the property. There was a situation with the COC where the commission did want them to clean the rain garden out and do some vegetative maintenance, but it's just, I can tell there was the native vegetation is supposed to be in there, some of that was cut. So we want to make sure that doesn't just become the new lawn area, and I made it very clear for the other cutting of the trees under the power lines that this is just cutting of trees to alleviate that hazard. It's not an invite to then start maintaining a little bit further and a little bit further and create a lawn area. That's to stay a natural area. The leaf litter is to stay there, all of that, and I think that was understood. So that's that.
Years ago, across the street, there's a ditch that runs between the Grady Building and the first house. And years ago, it actually was wet most of the time. I assume it went under the road. I didn't know there was a ditch on the other side. I've never noticed that.
Yeah, it pops out of a culvert.
You're talking about between the big gray building and the office building? Is that where it is?
I'm not sure about the big gray building. Is
Well, the
that where the
first building.
copper company is?
Oh,
Yeah,
Maybe?
yeah.
Yeah, it's in between,
In between those two.
yeah.
I've
It's closer
never-
to the office building at 68, and
I've
there is a
often
little
wondered,
culvert that pops out there.
Where does that water come from? Because there's no more ditch. There's yards behind, up
Behind
Summer
Grady?
Street. It may come from the cemetery somehow, I don't know.
How could
Okay.
it come from the cemetery?
From the pond or the area that's
I
there?
don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah.
because there's no.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, but there's a neighborhood that's on the, oh God, I mean, I'm gonna say Main Street, because I'm bad with the streets, where the churches are, and
Yeah.
that's higher than the cemetery, so I could see it.
It is higher, but
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the source, or it's a spring, or what.
I'm
It's
sure
a
it's a
curious little
perfectly
thing.
clean, natural spring that you could just drink right out of the ground.
Sweet.
I've often thought that it runs underground on the road there, there's up to the club and all the recreation area. And it must go under the liquor store and dump into the little brook. But I don't
I'm
know.
not sure.
It has to go someplace.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I've never figured it out.
I'm sure the end result is it goes into Stony Brook, right?
Yeah,
But I don't know where it comes from.
I don't know where it comes from. Never thought about it until just now, actually. Where
And
does
just
it
the
come
last very brief updates were, after a long winter of frozen ground and snow and not being able to get anything installed, the facilities department this week installed the permanent sign at Opachinski where the Eagle Scout chimney swift tower is. So that's got a permanent sign on it now, you can check that out. And at Callista Farm, the Wayside exhibit that was funded through CPC, I think FY '23, is finally installed. It looks great. So there's that, and then we're gonna have the plaque for the Artisoni family for the donation of the parking area for Winthrop Street installed shortly as well.
4 years.
Yeah, you know, we move quick. And just the last thing, if you do go to Callista, you're gonna see a giant branch hanging out of a black cherry tree onto the ground, with a down branch from last year that was never cleaned up, and the high school horticulture program said they're gonna take care of those shortly, so.
And there are new signs at the senior center as well.
Oh, the posts.
Yeah.
Yes, our intern, Levon, remember we had the issue with the senior center, you know, with the OOCs not being followed, and I have been coordinating with the facilities department on, you know, the area across the street from the senior center was only supposed to be 2 feet of grass and the rest of it was supposed to be natural, but they put the conservation posts at the woods line and they had been mowing the whole time. So for the last, I would say, year or so ago, they've stopped mowing that area. We had sort of like not snow stakes, but just, you know, 1-by-1 stakes in there. And just a couple weeks ago, Levon Sewer gave us their extra posts from the Davis property, from the leaching field site. And so I had Levon actually go to pick them up at the sewer plant in his mother's van, thinking they were gonna be like 4-foot-long 4x4s. They were 6x6s and I think they were 10 feet long. And he was able to get all of them over in this van. And then we had to cut them in half, and he did a great job. We had the gas-powered auger, and he got them now all along the line there. So now we have substantial posts with conservation placards. He's just gonna remove the old ones that are at the woods line still. And we've started to move into vernal pool certification season. We do have a focus on that this year. And now that I heard from you all that these pools were never certified, which I had always thought they were, you know, we were out there today in the pool across from the senior center. We only had 2 egg masses in that pool
That's
that we
all?
could tell. So I'm gonna follow up.
Because
and
that's the
just-
one that was certified.
There is one of them that was certified? I thought you said
Yeah.
none of them were certified.
No, I certified one.
You did.
That's
You did the
fir-
long one that's
as you
right
dri- as
down
you
from the
drive in-
driveway?
As you drive in the driveway,
Mhm.
where the posts were, that vernal pool.
The first one, all right, yeah, there were only 2 in there today. So I'm gonna follow up. I suspect that the bulk of obligate spring breeding is done, but it may not be. We may have another really warm rain that triggers more spotted salamanders or maybe even some wood frogs. I'm also gonna be surveying the other areas here again, and I
Where did
know
you
I
see-
have.
Where did you see the egg masses in that?
In this probably dead center of the pool. And we actually didn't get in the pool today. We just did a perimeter visual survey. I don't like to get in the pool if you don't have to because you
Right.
muck it up and make things worse. And they were pretty far away from where we could access, but you could see them pretty clearly. So again, that in itself is not enough. I'm assuming that it wasn't certified, that alone is not enough to certify it.
Right,
But if
but
it's
it
already
was.
certified.
But it was certified.
I want to be following up on use patterns over the years. I've tried to work with Highway on kind of squeezing the salt use over there. Obviously, they're going to use salt over there with the senior center and everything, but like trying to make sure it stays in the road and it's not like on full blast whipping it around like it was a few years ago. So trying to do what we can to make sure that conditions are as good as they can be for the vernal pool critters there, that hopefully there haven't been any catastrophic issues with water quality or habitat
well, that would do
over
it.
time.
Sure.
And if there have been, to make things as better, as best we can now, so that they have the chance to
Yeah, because
reestablish.
somebody's still around, so.
Yeah. So yeah, that, and we're gonna be just, like I said, we're working with Community Biodiversity Initiative, and their thing is trying to get some of the higher value PVPs looked at to see whether they're certifiable. We already had one that we didn't certify it, but we got documentation of Levon and I last week at Camp Nikon. There was one pool that was right near the trail where there
Oh,
was just a
right, yeah.
deafening wood frog chorus, and so we just stopped and recorded it, and that's enough. That's it. So sometimes, as long as it's very clear that they're in that pool, and we actually did see a ton of egg masses in
You
that
did?
one.
Nice.
Yeah, there's a lot of Nikon that's still in great shape. There were pools that were very heavily impacted by off-road vehicle use over the years, and I think some of that, obviously a lot of the use there has gone down. And I think a lot of the pools haven't been impacted. There's plenty of pools there that are far enough away from the roads, but we did still see spotted salamander egg masses in the road puddles because we weren't able to fix the whole main trail there. Like the trail between Rabbith Road and Pratt's Pond is still pretty rutted here and there, and I saw probably 15 to 20 spotted salamander egg masses in pools that will very clearly dry up if
Yeah.
they don't just get destroyed by the ATVs and things that are still around. So, yeah, there is plenty of intact habitat around vernal pools there, but then there's plenty of amphibians that will take the easy way out and use lesser quality habitat still, so. Not a ton we can do about that, short of continuing to work on fixing those trails. The downside is it's very expensive work that we have no funding for. The only way we fixed the main trail in Nikon was we were able to divert I think it was $9,000 of NRCS money that was intended for the Cranberry Watershed Preserve restoration that never happened. That NRCS said, we don't do these projects anymore, but you don't have to give us the money back, the first little bit of money they had given. And we had to, I think, go to town meeting to have that money diverted for Nikon, and that was what funded filling all of those giant puddles along the main trail, which I think was really beneficial. I just don't think we can afford to do that anymore, and it was really difficult work for the contractor to do. And short of that, I think we'd have to try to get some of us out there with like iron rakes and just try to like shovels and iron rakes and try to fill some of these things and see what we could do to try to discourage them from breeding in there and to make it so that it's easier to walk through there. At the same rate, the next weekend, people are gonna rip through there when we're not looking and probably turn it back into a puddle again, so. It's a lot of effort to try to get some of that stuff done, but hopefully we can, over time, do that. I think I told all the commission about the cleanup day, April 25th, in conjunction with the brewery. So that's happening.
Is that behind the brewery?
Yep, yeah, basically, people are meeting more or less at the brewery, like there's various places around there you could park. And if enough people show up, I think we're gonna split a bunch of people down to the fire station property on Maple Street.
Oh, wow.
And clean Stony Brook. We got some of the Southeastern Mass chapter of Trout Unlimited people hopefully showing up. It's nice to finally tie in with them. The idea is to have some people show up with waders that can actually get down, get in the water, or get into the wetland areas adjacent to the brook, and then have people to run stuff, you know, back from them up to drier areas with bags. I got a bunch of bags, and I got some extra gloves and a couple little grabby things that are strangely expensive. And I contacted the Carrolls who own the Maple Street property that were trying to, you know, purchase or be involved in some sort of a purchase of, you know, the dam and wetland portion, just to ask if it was okay with them if we included the wet and brook portions of their property that day, and they said that's fine.
And don't they, the dam that's in the middle of it?
Yeah, so it's good, we can get Stony Brook cleaned essentially from Summer Street down to the salt marsh. And even in some capacity, we could probably go upstream a little bit if we needed to, but I didn't really speak to the property owners up there about that.
Check the poison ivy.
Always an issue. The other quick update, we met with Eversource out at Tree Farm Landing. Brian's not here, but that's the property over near his house, where for years there's been a lot of problems out there with shooting and burning and off-road vehicle use and all sorts of great fun that was going on before the property was taken in as conservation property. And it's been a real hassle to try to get anything done there, and to get Eversource buy-in on it. But we did get Eversource to agree that, that they would look into the possibility of trying to sort of squeeze the access there, but more importantly, that if we do a cleanup there and we can pile up all the stuff, they'll truck it out of there for us. Because it is a difficult site to access, and there is a ton of stuff out there. So we're working on a date for that, probably sometime in May, and I confirmed with the fire department we can get one of those 6-wheel gator things that we used at the Nikon cleanup years ago, so that we can run stuff back and forth, not have to be hauling. Some of it's like big appliances.
It's like a shot-up dishwasher, or a shot-up air conditioner.
Yeah, rims and
457 shotgun shells.
per square foot.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's insane.
yeah.
Yeah.
So baby steps on, you know, just kind of probably start with the biggest stuff and try to get as much as we can. And I don't know if any of the shells there would be magnetic at all, but if so, we have the sweepy thing that might be helpful for trying to get some of that stuff up. If not,
Are lead shots
might be
still
able to
allowed?
sieve, you know.
Do they still
think
allow
they're
lead
brass.
shot?
Whether or not they allow it,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's the
There will
majority of
be
what people
some,
are shooting there, because most of the shot there is not, you know, specific, like hunting or anything, it's just, it's target shooting.
target shooting, yeah.
Yeah, we've seen just
So
crates
many-
and crates
so
of
many shotgun
ammunition out there.
shells.
So the idea is to get the site a baseline level of cleaned up. Open Space Committee has already started to work towards, and our office will be doing some of the legwork towards getting some signage installed over on Christmas Tree Lane where the main trail access is, and trying to get the trails marked and have a trail map on a sign and trying to make it a more appealing feature, and hopefully getting people in the neighborhood to see it and use it. And again, just like Nikon, I think the more people you get out there to use it, the less people probably want to be out there shooting things and burning things and driving around in circles while you're shooting and burning things. So,
Any other updates, Matt?
I had a meeting last week with the new Brockton mayor, with Representative Lenatra and Representative Plouffe, who represents the Brockton district, and representatives from Plymouth County and the Brockton City Council, just to talk about Silver Lake and water quantity more and quality issues. It went really well. The new mayor shows a desire to want to, not have detrimental ecological effects of their water use of Silver Lake. Obviously, they started just by saying, like, Brockton has the rights to Silver Lake. So, right off the bat, like, you know, we just want to say, like, you know, Brockton has the clear legal right to the water in Silver Lake. So that's, you know, and that, we know that. But that's obviously the baseline starting point. But, you know, I just sort of talked about where I saw some potential issues and things that I thought could be beneficial for Brockton to work on, and that hopefully there would be some state funding towards that, and anything that we could do to help Brockton get state or federal funding, to not be shy, and whether it's support letters or annoying phone calls to people, I said I'll do whatever it takes to advocate for this resource. And it was a good sort of thing where they are working on some things that should be beneficial, while also positioning themselves to be sort of the regional water authority for smaller communities that need more water. So that is in some ways concerning, you know, from a strictly ecological standpoint. It can all still work out if done correctly. So it's, we'll see what happens, but for the starters, it was a good meeting, and it's nice to at least have a good rapport with a new mayor there, and see
Good
how it
move.
goes.
Thank you for doing that.
Going forward.
You're still not going to use the desalination plant water?
They're currently not using any desalination plant water. So the way it works is they pay, I forget if it's $8 or $9 million a year for the rights to the water, but that doesn't get you any water. You still have to pay per gallon, and it's actually quite a lot. And so I think there's been sort of competing ideas there over time about whether you would want to buy Aquaria or not buy Aquaria. This mayor has, when he was a city councilor, always been in favor of buying Aquaria. There was there were two mayoral candidates who did not want Brockton to buy Aquaria. And it was a close race. So I think it's good. I think Brockton buying Aquaria would be a step in the right direction. It's not the end-all answer without some form of, you know, guidelines for Silver Lake, essentially. Like, if everything works out correctly, they could buy the Aquaria plant, maximize its production, and take way less out of Silver Lake. They could maximize production, sell water to 4 other towns, maybe 5, at a clip of probably 200,000 to 300,000 gallons per day, and still take way less water out of Silver Lake. So that's the hope. The hope is that at a minimum, that's what happens. And instead of having roughly 10 million gallons a day taken out of Silver Lake, you're seeing like 6. You know,
It must be a hell of a spring under there in order for it to stay at least at the levels it does, considering how
at the
fast
levels
they
it
take
does
out.
is, in my opinion, mainly from Monpont Pond diversion. I mean, at this time of year, right now, it's 25 million gallons a day, just to keep the houses around Monpont from flooding. Because
Really?
around Monpont, they allow development essentially right up to the
Right up
water,
to-
all the
right
way
up,
around.
yeah.
So when you get a ton of rain, if people that live around there start to scream at Brockton, but you need to get rid of this water, so they divert, like I said, about 25 million gallons a day at this time of
I
year,
didn't
just to
realize
try
it
to
was
keep
that much.
Monpont from
That's incredible.
getting so high that it floods people out.
Yeah.
So, and even throughout, you know, I would say a lot of the year, whenever they're able to do it, because they also can't let Monpont get too low without causing issues on that side, they are diverting into Silver Lake in order to keep the level up. The way the Water Management Act permit is written is really unfortunate. And if you read certain documents about the Brockton water system, it will say the safe yield of Silver Lake is 9.5 million gallons a day, which is just absolutely comical. What it is the Water Management Act permit says that the safe yield is 9.5 million gallons a day because it's Silver Lake, Furnace Pond, and Monpont Pond altogether.
That was put in the beginning?
the Water Management Act permit in I want to say it was, I can't come up with it off the top of my head, I think it was 94 maybe, that the Water
Oh.
Management Act.
Oh, the original goes back to like '03 or something. It was the early 1900s when they,
Well, that was when they were given the rights to
when they gave them the
water.
rights, yeah.
Yeah, but the actual, the permit from the state that allows Brockton to be aligned with the Water Management Act says the safe yield is 9.5 million gallons a day.
Okay.
And that's based on water being taken from 3 different sources.
Yeah.
Silver Lake itself, the safe yield is debatable, but different references say 4.3, and other ones say like 2 million gallons in the summer and a little bit more in the winter. So it's very clear that it itself can't supply that much water, but there are a lot of diversions from Monpont Pond throughout the year to try to keep those levels up. Ideally, you also have Aquaria, it's just it hasn't been there. I assume it's a budgetary thing. Brockton, like every other community, has had its budgetary issues, and one way they can deal with it is just to not buy water from Aquaria and take the free water, free in parentheses, obviously they still have a whole system there that they do, but they don't have to pay per gallon the way
Right.
they do from Aquaria, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that is something that goes forward, and I think if it does, it could happen pretty quickly, and start to see a meaningful help to the water supply there over the short term. I've pushed for some other things that I think could help also, that I think the state should support, because the state should want any of these large communities that have obvious Water Management Act issues to help deal with those in a practical way.
Yeah.
Because DP doesn't want to do anything about it. They don't want to go have legal battles with communities over what I would consider faulty registrations, or even if they think there's like a real issue with it, they just don't see success with things like that. So instead, if the state can just prioritize grant funding towards large-scale issues like that are both human health related, resiliency, and ecological
Yeah.
improvements, why not?
Yeah.
It'd be expensive, but it's better to do that than to sort of parse money out to smaller projects elsewhere. So that's where I'm pushing, and hopefully we can make some headway with some of that stuff, because there are other ways they could supplement their water supply than just Aquaria and just Silver Lake. So,
And button up the system.
yeah.
I understand this leaks again,
Yeah,
parts of the
you
system.
know, I don't have good numbers on water loss. We had heard that their water loss was quite high a couple of
Yeah.
years ago. We talked a lot during the meeting about they have been replacing infrastructure. A lot of their infrastructure is 100 years old or, decades old. There was talk about wooden pipes and things like that obviously aren't still in use today, but there's a lot of old infrastructure that they're chipping away at, and hopefully that has a, cumulative effect over time of lowering the water loss.
Yeah.
Because I would assume that's a big reason for it. There may be other issues. They were supposedly hiring a person to specifically look at water loss a year or two ago, and I don't know that it ever came to any fruition. But give, obviously the new administration the benefit of the doubt that they seem to want to do the right thing, and they want to move towards a sustainable water source that isn't, it's the same thing. You can't have an ecologically damaging water source and have it be sustainable for
Right,
your own
right.
constituents. So I think they want to move towards the right direction, and hopefully that's what happens. In the meantime, herring are around. Just got a text message earlier tonight, the first eel had shown up. Herring numbers so far this year, I don't think seem great at Forge Pond. It might still be early. It's watered and pretty cold, but other herring runs are like already well established. So what happened 2 years ago was really unfortunate, and it might have a long-term effect on the run here. That was the year that really could have ramped up the run right away, and it doesn't appear that's going to be the result of it. So hopefully we get another crack at this with better flow over the long term. So.
All right. Is there any other comments or? So the next meeting is held April 22nd, 2026, starting at 6:30 p.m. The time is now 9:23. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we hear a second?
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. We are adjourned.